into this thing.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Void Jumpers. I'm Jesse Keeter. I'll be your mission control tonight. We'll be playing Monster of the Week. It is a game created by Michael Sands, and it's a system based on the Powered by the Apocalypse mechanics. This will be an actual play stream, but our focus will be on the characters and the narrative. So we have bent some rules, broken others, and created a bunch of our own stuff. So forgive us. We're just going to be having some fun and telling a story that we enjoy, and we hope you do too. Welcome back. What's up? I'm happy to be here. It's my favorite night of the week, everybody. Before we get rolling into the game, I'm going to introduce Connor Marks real quick. He's going to talk to you about a charity that we are sending all of our tips and donations to tonight.
Cool. Hey, everybody. So let me say, first of all, that I'm going to just, get all bubbly and echo a lot of what Jesse was saying, which is just that we just wait all week for the chance to do this on Wednesdays. We're psyched about it, and so we want you to enjoy it. And it's a weird frickin' time to be alive, and so I hope, as we've been in the last couple of weeks talking about these charities we're raising money for, it doesn't seem like we are asking too much. I know that everybody's in a different situation financially, but we are going to continue doing this work. Tonight we're raising funds for a group called the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, ARC. It's a California-based nonprofit, and what's so cool about them, let me just talk about them a little bit. What's very cool about these guys is that they do both direct service and policy work when it comes to formerly incarcerated people, specifically here in California. So when people are coming home, they are there providing resources for housing, for vocational skills training, for jobs, for programs of hope and optimism, therapy services, and they're also working in policy. So, for example, there's going to be something on the ballot this November that hopefully is going to reinstate the right to vote to people once they come home and are living. And so we're excited about working with ARC for a bunch of reasons. I would say number one, because the prison industrial complex in this country is fucking nuts. Is that me? Is that a long time? And I think right now, it's a real clusterfuck, if I can use that word, with COVID. It's just an awful place to be, and what we're seeing is that there's these populations that are rehabilitated older, just really at very, very high risk, and they are in the worst possible places. And California wants to be able to let a lot of these people go home, but the problem is there just aren't the resources there to support that. And so it's all to say, if you're able to pitch in and make a donation tonight to send a tip through the game, it's going to be quadrupled. We have a 3-to-1 matching partner who's going to take that $5 donation and turn it into $20. The $25 donation turn it into $100. Not the apt too much. Great organization. And if you can't, we're so thrilled to have you. Just enjoy and watch. Ugh, don't let me talk for that long in the future. That was horrible.
Oh, thank you. You're saying really important stuff, and we need to get out there. Okay, I think that's the business. This is our Season 1 finale. This is the end of our first mission arc, assuming that I don't party wipe this group of people because I just looked over some of the stats for the creatures I created today, and they're interesting. But assuming everybody makes it out alive, this should be the Season 1 finale, and so we're very excited. We've done a little bit of different stuff in preparation for this for a couple different reasons, but I think it'll just be a fun time for us and for you, and we're excited to be sharing this story with you tonight. We're going to go into a brief recap of some of our favorite character moments that happened the last session, so we can just refresh our memories and yours, and then we're going to see what happens. We're going to start out tonight with Tag the Parallel.
Very funny, Jesse. Put the camera right back on me and get me to talk a bunch. Very funny, everybody. So Tag is a mysterious kid. He's a lot of mysteries in his past. We saw a glimpse in episode 2 of his origin story. where we noticed he has this kind of instinctual alignment with a number of different elements, which is unheard of in this universe. Those who can use magic are usually bound to a single element: fire, bloom, blight, whatever it is. And so Tag himself doesn't quite know what the story is. And in the last episode, we saw a moment of crisis where Tag went to help his summoner, Bryn, and something else took over, and he kind of astral projected himself into the body of another creature, and from within exploded outwards. And we talked about the aesthetic of that looking kind of like fire but without color. And I'll add to that the idea of dropping ink in water, just this sort of graceful explosion of I don't want to say antimatter, because I think antimatter is a real thing, but what an uneducated, non-scientific mind would think of when they say antimatter.
I would add on that there is another interesting thing about Bryn, your summoner, because she too seems to pull from multiple elements, which is uncommon among the summoner family, where typically a summoner is bound to their planet's element. Bryn, like Tag, seems to have this uncanny ability to access other avenues of magic. And it's interesting that the two of you are paired together. All right. Cool. You also got a great new item.
Oh, yeah. I got a staff to do sweet bow staff tricks with. Also, presumably, it has a lot of magical power, as this was the staff of the Bloom Summoner. But we've yet to experiment with it. Who knows what it'll do.
All right, cool. All right, and next we're going to talk to Bryn, the summoner.
Yay! The almost summoner. I still I told Jesse I still struggle with this. I feel like so not a summoner. I'm so in over my head most of the time. I think the biggest thing that stood out for me this last episode was witnessing a summoner die, because I've just never seen that before. It's such a hushed thing that really isn't talked about a whole lot. And on my planet, I don't know if this is a rule on all planets, but the summoner only dies by magic. It's the only way that they can be killed. So witnessing that was pretty horrific and reverent and all the things for Bryn to see. And then, just getting the urge to pick the flower, one of the flowers that he turned into when he died. It just felt like carrying a piece of him and finding a way to honor him later on.
Yeah. If your assumption is correct, and that summoners can only be killed by magic, it would go to say that the wound you saw on him, which looked like a wound inflicted by some of the creatures that you've come across before, and the poison that was coursing through his veins, there may be something a bit higher level about that kind of damage, that perhaps it was delivered by something that was not so simple, if it takes heavy-duty magic to erase a summoner.
Right.
All right. Next, we're going to check in with the professor.
Hi. So after Summoner Langorium died, while he was still around in his death rattle, he went over lots of different things with us, and described one of the things that the professor has been trying to cultivate. As the professor makes these distilled crystallized Erixes, but no one anywhere has ever been able to make a Bloom Erix. Just, it's far too difficult, far too unstable. But apparently the folks at Bloom, under Summoner Langorium's supervision, made a prototype Bloom Erix. And they used it to help really make their production of their food that they were creating on that planet just like skyrocket. And unfortunately, he also spoke about the company, and the company coming to Bloom and wanting to deal with the Bloom Erix and trying to make a stable version, but instead they did some crazy weird experiments with it, and basically created an opening, a portal in this sort of space between our world and the world of magic. And lots of badness kind of came through. So that was sort of a really excellent for the professor to see, like this, Bloom Eric's, this is something that has never been done before. So that's really great, and he ended up finding that and taking it with us. But along with that, Tag had a lot to say about how he felt about the company's involvement and in dabbling into science, or using science to get their own evil ends. And so that was a thing, and he made his views very clear.
Okay.
Hey, look, if I knew that we were taking the opportunity to condescend to each other's characters, I would have gotten a couple sneaks of my own there, Mr. S. Lewis.
I was just relaying what has happened, sir. At all.
It was a very tense scene. I think justifiably so.
Yeah.
There's been some freaky stuff that's gone on, but I as the person who's just kind of trying to facilitate the story, fucking love that stuff. I loved how hard Tag came at the professor, but in a way, there was a moment shortly thereafter where the professor, holding his tongue, implied that, yes, while you are very angry, Tag, I do feel like maybe you're not taking into, you don't have as much experience in the real world and dealing with all of these different entities to kind of, it's easy to point fingers when you're standing on the outside. And it was just this conflict of experience versus righteousness. I don't know. I think both characters were right, both characters were wrong. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, he was not completely wrong in that. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why the professor held his tongue, is because he wasn't completely wrong. I mean, he had a lot of points.
Well, the professor was also embarrassed when Tag said, "Okay, boomer," to close out the argument. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, we're going to end with good old Rex.
So, this isn't a major plot point, but it was very, very cool when I tickled some vines, and they turned out to be like tendrils of a monster that I then set on fire with my two flamethrowers at the same time.
Dual-wielding.
Oh, yeah.
Dual-wielding flamethrowers. Yes, that was extremely cool.
Badass.
Yeah. But I feel like the big ending climactic moment from our last session was when we had finally made our way into the greenhouse and fought our way through, and then we came to this big clearing with all these mounds that, as we got closer, we realized were full of eggs and gross creatures, and we realized that the reason we hadn't seen anybody in this facility that we'd been in for hours was because their bodies had been drug into the greenhouse and then turned into fuel for all of these nightmare creatures that we have been battling. So that was super gross and graphic and really imprinted on my brain.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for nothing, Jesse, you weirdo.
Yeah, you're
I'm
welcome.
surprised I don't have more nightmares from this show.
I love it. I eat it up.
Okay, that brings us to the beginning of episode 7, which is titled The Summoner. We left off in the center of the greenhouse, outside of the reactor core, as the professor was making his way towards the breach in the reactor core, where you've been told there is a rift or gateway of some kind that was contained until the reactor split. There was a rumble in the earth, and one of the hills nearby collapsed as a gargantuan elder scorpion rose from the rubble and approached you in what you could only assume is a very predatory manner. You've been told by Summoner Langorium before entering this greenhouse that he believes that this creature was brought onto this plane through the rift on accident, but was then captured and contained by the company, where they chained it into the reactor, hooked up their devices to it, and were taking its energy to power this facility. It then escaped. Since then, the facility's been overrun with these nightmare creatures. You've also been told that this creature may be an echo, a corrupted avatar of one of the original Bloom representations from the continuum on this planet. That is all to frame the fact that this thing's about to fuck your shit up. Alright, we're dropping into game. This monster, it is huge. It is the size of the reactor core. It must have fought its way up and out. You've seen them moving underground. As it walks, the earth shakes. It is a huge scorpion with these massive pinchers and an arced tail that is dripping what you can now assume is the poison, which must have done away with the summoner. And as it approaches, it is towering over you. The tip of the tail must be 40 feet in the air. This thing is gigantic.
Well, I think I speak for everybody when I say, first we want to try diplomacy. See if it's got some grievances that
Bake
To
some
a good
cookies.
cause 3H. Run.
Run! Yes!
Yes.
Very good.
Ooh, Rob McLennan. Hello, Rob.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rob. That's $25 has become $100.
$100.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Thank
Yay, thank you.
you. Okay.
So,
Who would like to go first? Tag.
I go, sir or ma'am? Oh, fuck, I've already started with, I'm so sorry. No, I think that we should not try diplomacy. Though I do love a good chat. I suspect that Jesse is correct in saying the scorpion is more interested in hurting us. Really.
Yeah, well, I've fired up my flamethrowers. That's what I've done.
Double flamethrowers? Sure.
Yeah.
You actually want to let them rip against this thing?
What? Is it close enough?
Yeah, at this point, we're going to move into combat. So every time that
Great.
you guys take an action, time will move forward. You will roll dice once or twice, depending on the complexity of what you're doing. And then at the end of that, the world state, the combat state, will have elevated to whatever you just did, and the next person will go. There's no initiative. We'll probably go in order, but you can switch it up if you want to. I know that Lisa's got some reactions that we've never really played with before, if you want to slip into other turns. But this is going to be your first big combat proper. So if you're ready to rock and you want to shoot some flamethrowers at this thing, let's do it.
And if I look, not like I want to be the one putting a pause on shooting dual wielded flamethrowers.
Kind of
But
seems like you are.
let me clarify, this group has had no opportunity to form any kind of game plan. That is the timetable we're working on. This thing's moving right at us. We're not huddling. We're just acting on the fly, correct?
Yeah, because it in essence has surprised you. It was an ambush.
Right.
The three of you, Bryn, Tag, and Rex, are standing next to each other. The professor has walked a short distance forward towards the reactor, but is not too far away. All right.
All right.
I'm going to say, Rex, roll kick some ass.
All right.
Oh,
Let's see what that is.
God.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Talk to me about your flamethrower. How much damage does it do?
You know, I don't know that we actually established how much damage the flamethrower does.
I got one of them next to me. I think I can look at it.
Sounds like it does a bunch of damage.
Sounds like a lot of damage to me. Sounds like we're having some roasted scorpion for dinner.
Most likely, yes. As you guys have learned, these things are weak against fire, so it will be taking an additional +1. Your flamethrower does 3 harm, so you are dealing 4 harm. With a 12+, you get to do an additional effect. Why don't you choose what that is, and then just narrate how you go about what you're about to do.
Okay. So I've gotten the 2 flamethrowers ready, but I don't want to, get blasted anybody else. So I kind of just jump out in front of them I pull up the flamethrowers and I go, take that!
Okay. All right. You deal 4 harm. This thing is covered in a very thick armor. You can see as the fire rolls across it, you have damaged its armor, but not gotten rid of it. It takes full damage from you. You can also give +1 to yourself or somebody else moving forward. You can deal additional harm, suffer less, or force the creature where you want it.
I'll take a +1 going forward.
All right, just remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see this creature approaching you. Rex jumps out with dual flamethrowers and just roasts it. Who goes next?
Okay.
I got an idea.
What's up?
Let me ask a world question. So Tag has not gone through schooling, but would I know of any? Are there any plant life in this world that might have either corrosive qualities about them or flammable qualities about them?
Yeah, I mean, when you were walking through this greenhouse, it wasn't just a jungle that had sprung up here. What it was is it was rows and rows and rows of these plants that the company was creating. And so it would go to say that there would be a variety of strange, not necessarily natural occurrences in there. And so both of those things you would have passed something that maybe you brushed your elbow against and started to burn through the sleeve, and somebody had to like fix it for you, or like you saw some weird stuff in this greenhouse.
Well, we're gonna try to walk that fine line between character knowledge and player knowledge, and see if we can come up with some interesting narrative devices because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's sort of a moment where. It's a very cinematic moment where the scorpion has risen in front of us, and then sort of blurry in the foreground of that frame, almost in slow motion, there's flames rising. We pan down and we just see Rex alone, sort of the one backpack slung over each shoulder, but flamethrower packs, screaming. And in that chaos, there's an opportunity for just a split second of quietude and introspection. And I look right at the summoner, and the thought that passes through us telekinetically is unworded, but kind of excited, I think. That there's so much to be terrified by, and we've got these characters that have been unsure and worried this whole time, and maybe the chaos has just looped around the horn, maxed out the potential for anxiety, and come around to a sublime place of calm. But there's kind of a hoorah, let's do this moment. At least going from Tag. I don't know what the summoner feels in response.
She thinks, hell yeah.
In short, hell yes.
Are you going to do a move? Because I have a move.
I have an idea, but girl, you are the summoner. You should never be playing second fiddle to me. Get your act on.
Fine. I'm going to use Force of Will, and I'm going to dispel a magical effect, because I want to be able to use magic and not get fucked up like I did before. So I'm going to dispel whatever was blocking my magic.
Sure.
Yes.
It is a plus weird roll.
Oh. It's better be better to me than last week. Last week was garbage.
Last week was rough.
That's a 10. That's better.
Okay. On a 10 plus, you can... Sorry... Yeah, so blocking this podcast on a hit, momentary magics are canceled completely, and long-lasting spells and effects are suspended temporarily. So, yeah, absolutely. It says on a 10 plus, you can also spend luck to instantly snuff out a powerful spell or strange effect, which is.
I don't have any luck. I used it all last week.
You got 4 left.
I used 5, so I have 4 left.
Did you have to roll luck?
I got a 2, and I needed a 7 to. Whatever, so I used all 5 luck. Oh, you only had
to cash in one point to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you still have 4 luck. But on a 10 plus, you can do exactly what you just said. So how would you protect yourself from something that's trying to keep you from casting magic?
Well, obviously I'm going to pull out Airmid, my staff, and I'm going to use it to sort of scan the room and see where I can find weak points within just the energies and what's going on. And I see this area that kind of looks like an oil slick over to the left of the creature, and I realize that that's this like pulsating beacon device. It's like feeding off energy, and I'm like, that's it, that son of a bitch. That's it. And so I'm gonna just use my force of will, and I'm gonna shoot at it with my staff and make it sort of eat itself, and it starts folding in until it completely snuffs out.
What is the projectile that launches out of your staff to hit this? What does it look like?
This projectile from Force of Will is burning red.
All right, cool. You there's like this puff of energy around Bryn as dust and leaves spread out. Everything goes into slow motion as she whips her staff out, points it right at this bubbling black ichor that's flowing out of the crack in the reactor, and she launches a red projectile at it, and it starts to pull inward as if it's about to implode, but you realize that there's some hole you cannot see, and it is just being funneled into this. There seems to be so much of it, it does not lessen the puddle itself, but all of its attentions are now being drawn into this hole that Bryn has created into the phase state. And you feel a pressure, like your ears pop when you reach a certain altitude, kind of happen. And whatever was starting to cramp your magical style has now been neutralized.
Whew.
Who's next?
I'll go.
Professor.
So, all the other times we've had altercations with things, like the professor is not really, he's felt very out of his depth. Like, he hadn't done any combat training or whatever, but so it's been very odd for him. This one's slightly different because of the repetitive conflicts that we've gotten into. He finally feels like a little bit like in his element. You know, he finally feels a little bit in tune with the group. There's still like a drop in his stomach when he initially sees this creature, but he's been sort of expecting this, even though it is an ambush. Mm-hmm. So he's going to do his best to kind of like roll back towards the, so because he has a shoulder cannon and he's not a melee fighter, and once he does it, he's going to crouch, touches his temple, and a reticle is going to pop out. But instead of like shooting the fire bolts directly onto the abdomen of the creature, he knows that like something of this size and this much weight is placing a lot of weight on each of its legs. And so if I can somehow get rid of some of those legs, this thing's going to fall down like a bag of hammers. So I'm going to kick some ass with a fireball.
All right.
Oh, yes. 12.
Excellent. I think that your additional effect would be to disintegrate 2 of the legs.
I like it.
Okay. It'll be on the same side of the creature. You roll back. It's a clumsy, inexperienced roll, but you do so and land on your feet. And you just swivel the Muppet as you are bringing in your scanner, and you blast this fireball that hits the scorpion in the leg, and it disintegrates 2 of those legs, and it slumps forward. The tail, which had risen and was beginning to strike Rex, lashes out at you, Professor, and roll Act Under Pressure.
Act Under Pressure, which is, what is that? That is cool. Okay. And cool is 1, so that is 8.
Okay. You roll out of the way, but you do catch the stinger of this thing's tail and the armor that you picked up. I believe it's a Bloom facility employee vest.
Yeah.
It hits you in that, and
very rinky-dink. Yeah.
It really doesn't really get you. It really tags that armor as you're rolling out of the way, but you do feel it pierce through. The poison that's on the stinger does not get to you, but you do feel a prick of 1 harm as the tail gets through, and there's a rather strange experience that you have. You feel this pressure in your chest rushing towards the wound, and everybody else who's standing outside can see that the tail briefly ripples the black ichor along it, and you see this strange, it's as though something's being pulled out of the professor into the tail, and as the tail whips back, there are golden threads that are kind of spaghetti noodling up into it, and the stinger begins to glow green.
Oh.
All right.
That seems bad.
Before we continue,
Sounds
I
good.
want to do a quick audit of harm. I believe some people have taken it before this battle. Professor, you just took 1. Some people had healed before this battle, but I don't know that everybody did. Tag.
No, Tag's hurt. I forgot myself, and Tag's hurting a lot. Tag's hurting.
What are you at?
A number of harm. What are numbers to storytellers like us? Am I right, Jesse?
Are you mechanically unstable?
I've taken 3 harm.
Then you
If
are
I
not.
take 1 more, I will become unstable.
Just making sure.
Just FYI to my group, who maybe has some health backs.
I got a heal spell. I think when I leveled up.
You did.
healing-
Anytime we
picked up.
use new spells on levels, let's take a second to explain them to the group, but we'll wait till you do it. Yeah, so Tag, speaking of the very injured party member, it's your turn.
Well, there's a point at which it makes you stronger. I think I'm still there.
Sure.
But we'll see how long it goes. So I still have this staff in my hand, the summoner's staff, which I've never used before. And as the scorpion burst out of the ground, I was just holding it because I still hadn't put it away. It's not my instinct to use it. I would think to use my psychic abilities or my void blade, but I can kind of feel it. I want to say thrumming. Is that the word that I think means what I think it means? Okay, great. I'm always worried about accidentally saying something, I don't know, inadvertently sexual or something. So it is vibrating. And we know about Tag, some magical instinct there. He's got some fuel in that can, even if it's untrained and even if he doesn't know how to use it. And I think what happens is that in many ways the staff, without an instruction manual, is kind of telling him how it wants to be used. Kind of like when you're in the tutorial level of a video game and it's in a very scripted way, like now you're going to do this. Press X. The staff is giving Tag that press X instruction. And so he picks it up, and what I, as a player, am calling upon right now is a move that this staff has called Imbue Life. Grant inanimate objects life. The objects sprout plant-like parts and appears plant-like. And so he holds the staff in both hands. The ember at the top glows a deeper and deeper green, and you can kind of see, almost like when you get up and you're a little dizzy, those little flecks of light in the corner of your vision that if you focus on, they disappear, but if you relax your vision, he sees more and more green into gold embers floating off the staff, and they're latching on to the various little mechanical nuts and bolts of this greenhouse facility. In this case, maybe literally nuts, bolts, screws, and the scaffolding, pieces of wire, just the little structural, mechanical, constructed bits that make up this greenhouse. And what I'd like, Jesse, is as I'm animating them with life, I specifically want them to take on the plant-like attributes of something the plant that brushed my arm that kind of started to burn, something a little corrosive or flammable.
Sure.
And all.
Are these nuts and bolts holding up structural important components of this space that we are in?
It's a giant scorpion, Trin. Sometimes you got to bring the whole greenhouse down around you.
Are you Samsoning this thing?
Okay, look.
So here's what Tag is calling upon. So he picked up the Bloom Summoner Staff, which is a very powerful relic that I created stats for and several custom moves. Imbue Life is one of them. What's fun about it to me is that no matter what, the spell's going to work. But depending on his role, the thing he instills life into will have some behavioral traits that go along with it. So,
Oh no!
why don't you roll plus weird?
I think it would be fun to know what the negative outcomes is before the roll, just so we can really see the stakes. So, on a 10 plus, object is granted permanent life, loyal to the summoner who gifted it existence. On a 7 to 9, medium success, the comes to life long enough to complete one task and is still loyal. A 1 to 6, however, the object comes to life but is vengeful for being imbued with the unbearable weight of consciousness. It swears to get revenge on he or she who willed it into existence. So that's kind of what we're working with here, just to set the stage.
Oh boy!
All right,
No,
I'll
no
be
questions.
rolling now. Oh gosh, I just got myself nervous. I shouldn't have read that. I was doing fine before. I was like, hey, and I started reading. Okay, that's an 11.
Okay, so I think that what happens is this. You, when I originally designed the spell, I thought that you might point it at a rock and turn the rock into a plant thing, but you're thinking about this several different pieces and parts that are holding up these glass panes. And so the way that I see it is, without having full control over the staff, much like your Void Blade, these relics, as it was communicating an instinctual instruction to Tag, they seem to have personality. They seem to have desires of their own and what you sense to be trust and understanding as well. So you're entering into this relationship with a very powerful entity and just pointing it and using one of its most powerful abilities for the first time ever. And so I think what happens is there is a surge.
Everyone's got a fucking tone tonight, don't they?
I'm setting the stage.
Okay, that's my line, man, and it backfired against me.
You feel a surge of energy. This thing you originally thought would be tied to the planet and its energy source, the way Bryn talks about tapping into that energy source, the way that you've seen it from the outside. But it seems to be generating this energy all on its own. The staff itself is a reactor of power. And it explodes with this bright green energy that shoots. And as it's twirling through, the bolts of energy look like tendrils at first and then almost turn into full-fledged vines. They lash out and hit these different nuts, bolts, and girders of the roof of the greenhouse. And you see the metal beams start to twist and bend. And in doing so, this is on one pane of glass, a rather large one, but the whole roof's not about to come down. You do see the beams twist so that the glass does crack and shatter, and pieces of it begin to fall down. The bolts start to unscrew themselves and pop out, and this rain of debris falls towards the ground, and as it does, it begins to find itself in the air. Pieces and parts are starting to reassemble as it falls, its descent being slowed by these vines that have pulled it down to the ground. They continue to snake out of the staff like scarves from a magician's sleeve until they deplete and wrap themselves up onto a creature which forms, using all of these parts and all of these plants which are now starting to sprout from it. What does that creature look like, Tag? Your restriction is that it would be a medium-sized creature, something like a large dog.
Well,
Tiny Stegosaurus.
I'll never in my life live with myself if I say no to tiny stegosaurus. But I don't want to say no to anything, but this is taking a unplanned turn. So they form a creature, a one sentient being.
Yeah.
Girder Golem.
It's like a golem. You're imbuing life into an inanimate object. Did you think that you would be... What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, that they would like a bunch of little ants, basically, like tiny little, the size of the nuts and bolts, just like 50 of them, they could just...
Anti-Stegosauruses!
Well, we heard that because the camera wasn't on trend, but it was a real look of joyful glee as she said anti-Stegosauruses. My end goal was trying to cover this creature with a flammable tarp.
Got it.
It could then be exploded by our summoner or other source of fire. But if we want to summon a plant golem,
it's more of a golem creation. It is a servant loyal to you, so now that you have this plan in mind, you could describe this thing as having flammable nectar as part of its...
Shit. Look, if we got a Stegosaurus...
Yeah, it's like the glass panes that are the spikes on the back.
Try to punch the scorpion a couple times before we light it on fire. And in fact, why would we light it on fire? We have a pet Stegosaurus now. That's my new priority. We gotta get that guy to safety.
Okay, Tag has now created a miniature Stegosaurus made out of plants and debris. The spikes on its back, the plates are made out of the glass panes, and the spikes on its tail are the metal girders. And it is covered in vines, and it has these pods in its neck that you can tell might spray flammable plant nectar.
Question. Clarifying
yes.
question. Are there now panes of glass falling on us as well? Because not all of them went into the assemblage of the tiny Stegosaurus.
It was concerned about the greenhouse, about the structural damage to the greenhouse, okay? I found the new staff that does cool stuff, all right?
It was a controlled grab of resources. It seems like the small amount that did plummet to the ground was all incorporated into it.
All right.
Everybody's so worried about Tag bringing the whole roof down on top of us, killing the whole party. Okay.
All right.
Look at the good news.
That
feels like
brings
probably...
us back to what? Yes.
No, we're saying the same thing. I was going to say that feels like enough of a move for Tag. Anymore would be...
That brings us back around to Rex.
I think, I've got one more charge in these flamethrowers left, and I'm going to use it for all it's worth.
Yeah.
So I'm going to not cartwheel, flip, do some cool flips to get out of the way of wherever the scorpion tail was going to aim at.
Okay.
And then try and just blast it again with my flamethrower.
Sure.
That did not go quite as well. Fortunately, I have that +1, I believe, plus my kicks in the ass. So that is that's an 8.
Okay.
Respectfully.
So you're going to exchange some damage with the scorpion. You deal a monster amount of fire damage, and you see its top layer of armor disintegrate away. And a lot of the ichor burns off with it. It still looks to be armored, but it looks like you've taken off a complete layer of armor. That being said,
So it's like I took it to the spa, and it just had one of those treatments where it just peels off. Yeah.
It reels because it's already trying to keep its balance on the legs that have been burned off of it. And the tail immediately strikes and hits you in the chest, right in the solar plexus. And it deals 4 damage.
Whoa!
What armor do you have?
I think I just have the +2 armor.
Okay. So it does not...
Yeah.
Your armor negates 2 harm, but 2 gets through. And you feel that stinger puncture. It's not a fatal injury because the armor does its job, but the stinger is in your skin. You do feel poison start to seep into you. And you will have a -1 going forward, as well as the ichor on the tail roils. And you feel your life essence drain into the scorpion's stinger. The scorpion is now going to use a custom move and burn the 3 points of life energy, which he has siphoned from you lot, to use flower power. Wow.
That
Sounds like a Care Bear.
Yeah, we should have used diplomacy all along.
It's about time. Flower power.
It's a very adorable power. It probably will not have too many consequences. While it's connected to you, you see all of the energy it has pent up in its stinger. explode into your body. It courses through you and then culminates on your back where Graflex, your enchanted fire mace, is. And it feels a lot lighter now, but since it's on your back, you can't really see what happened to it. Okay, so that brings us to Bryn. You just saw the scorpion plunge its stinger into Rex's back and inject her with poison and then a strange energy, which, from your vantage point, turned her hammer or her mace into a large flower.
Dang it. Okay.
That's quite cute and clownish for such an otherwise menacing beast.
Yes. But now that the flamethrowers are depleted and Trin's fire enchanted weapon is a flower, it seems that your fire arsenal is also cute and adorable in comparison to what it once was.
Well, things are dire now, I'm realizing, with poison in 2 of our group members, and Tag still dealing with residual damage. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I do this uber focus, and I grab onto my necklace just to hold onto it because it's like a comfort, and I start feeling it pulse, and I start getting this instinct from it that it's talking to me, that it's like compelling me, and I grab my staff and I look at it, and I bring it next to my necklace, and it makes this link of like gold flowing link. And I grab it, and I look at the scorpion, and I summon everything from that shard of all that's left of my home, our palace before it was destroyed by magic. And I yank it out, and I aim it at that scorpion tail to just like sever it.
You want to sever the scorpion tail?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hell
and
yeah.
you're calling on... I'm inferring that you're calling on fire if you're tapping into the relic of your home planet.
Right.
Cool, yeah, roll it. You're rolling... I think that this is big time magic. It's not big magic, but it is... I think you're using magic. So roll plus weird.
13.
Yeah,
Yes.
you just do it. You do it exactly. I think in my brain it looks like a tornado that forms out of the head of your staff that is just like this twisting tornado of fire. It's channeling the energy that you speak of from your necklace. And as you are burning through the scorpion, you do in fact sever its tail. And it is just geysering this black ichor from the wound. But you do feel pressure in your chest, and as you look down, you see that the necklace is the crystals that are in it are starting to stress crack and fracture, and they start to flake away, and as they peel off and move towards the staff as though pulled by some kind of tractor beam, they disintegrate in the air, and they just start feeding it. It looks like when you lean down into a fire and blow into it and you see the embers come up. It's just the necklace is disintegrating and turning into these embers, which is fueling the staff. And the summoner deals this mighty blow and severs the stinger from the scorpion. Her necklace crumples, all of the crystals are gone, and it is now just a twisted metal around her neck. This time, Bryn, because you yourself are not looking for the magic, you're not trying to pull it from any one place and channel it through yourself, you're simply feeding it from the necklace through the staff, you do not feel that loss of control or that lust of power. It's much more clinical, because in a way it's one relic feeding another. You know, it is a bullet being put into a gun. And so you are removed from it in this sense. You do now have a necklace that seems to have been tapped. Yeah, but you roast this thing. I mean, it now reels back. Its tail is just spraying this black fluid everywhere, and it is starting to lunge towards you on unsteady legs. It does not look to be doing good.
Yes, that's what you get for messing with my friends.
Professor.
Wow. I don't have necessarily anything as elaborate as that. I'm just going to keep on going to the other legs on the same side and, like I said, drop this thing like a bag of hammers.
Sure. Roast it.
10, 11.
Okay. Yeah, you kick some ass. You get to choose an additional effect. You can deal extra harm, give yourself a +1 or somebody else, take less harm, or force it where you want it.
I'm going to add some more harm in order to really make sure that at least one side of its body's legs are gone. And so hopefully that will, as it's lurching forward, just crumple it to the side, and so it won't go forward anymore.
Okay. You take the legs out from under it, they crisp up, and it nosedives into one of those mounds of plants and eggs. Its tail whips forward. Roll act under pressure.
I thought the tail was severed.
The stinger's been removed from it.
Oh, gotcha.
6.
Okay. You catch a full blow from the tail. There's no stinger on it, but it hits you like it's just like getting hit by a sofa. It throws you back onto your ass, and you're covered in the ichor that it was spewing forth. The ichor does not seem to be reacting to you in the same way that it reacted to Bryn. When Tag flung it onto her, it started to travel up and try and almost suffocate her. You're just getting sprayed in this very disgusting stuff. It smells disgusting, and you are covered in it. And you take 1 harm from the blow, but the scorpion is now laying in the mounds of plants and eggs. Its pinchers are extended forward and clicking weakly. Its tail, like a hose that's been let go of, sprays a little bit and then falls down. The creature is not dead, but it has been defeated.
I kind of shake my head a little bit, and droplets of the ichor kind of spray in all the different kinds of places, and so I can clear my eyeballs a bit and see what's going on. I look around as the dust is settling, and everyone's kind of catching their breath. And I look closely at the creature, and is it breathing? As like what's? I mean, like I know it's a shadow of something, but
yeah, it is. There are signs of life. It is breathing. It seems like a raspy breath. It doesn't have a traditional kind of face, a humanoid face, so you're not sure where its nostrils are or how exactly it is using the air, taking it in, but there seems to be these shuddering final breaths that are happening. It is very large.
Okay. I'm going to turn to my party and said, like, look, I know when I did this before, it was gruesome, but I think I have studied the anti-Erics that I got before, and I think I will be able to tweak the equipment, and so what happened before is not going to happen this time. So I approach the Hulk.
What does that mean?
What is that? Oh, before, like, you know, when I put my equipment above the monster tick, or the nightmare tick, a couple of episodes ago. It essentially kind of like cracked and fizzled and deflated like burlap sack. What I'm saying is, before, like, the professor has been able to study what went wrong and what happened that last time, and he's able to he thinks he's able to, if he's able to do that again, he can make it so that what happened last time, it will not happen this time. I'm going to free the creature as opposed to destroy the body. So,
free the creature from what, Tag asks?
The ichor. To remove the ichor that is on this creature without destroying the creature outright.
Well, then why did we have to mangle it so violently before freeing it?
This is something that takes some time. It's not going to stay put for me while I attempt to do this. It's not something. It's like if you were to try to put a collar on a dog that won't stay put. It would be a very difficult thing to do.
You have to chop the legs off of that dog first.
You got it.
I think Tag's a softie. He's very naive. He doesn't, he grew up essentially with stars in his eyes, worshiping the parallels who were being trained. I think that he just not assumes, but I think he hasn't truly had enough experience, just like the professor was saying. He hasn't had enough experience to understand what lies look like, or what betrayal looks like, or what it might mean to have a hidden agenda. And so I think he is really relieved when the professor says these things, and he smiles and he says, "Great."
Yeah.
And I think I reach out to try and stop him, and kind of catch my breath and just kind of crumple to my knees and pass out.
I'm gonna go to her and use my healing spell for the first time.
Okay. We'll resolve the Rex Bryn thing, because I love when we create new spells, so I want to take a second to talk about it, but we're going to do Professor first. I think in that moment there is tension. There was a huge explosion that happened after the last time the Professor did this, and perhaps because everyone's so freaked out from having just battled and won against a giant scorpion, maybe because Rex collapses onto the ground as the poison starts to take over her, and Bryn is now called to save her friend, and Tag is uncertain as what's going on. In this moment of confusion and what was quiet after the storm, the Professor is granted the freedom to do what in any other time the party has made clear they would love to stop him from doing. But because of the circumstances, he walks forward, and I believe you're about to use Distill Magic, Professor?
That is correct.
Oh, so he is doing the same thing. Oh, you snake! The equipment, you snake!
Roll.
Tag believes him. Tag bought it for sure. Hook, line, and sinker.
So the Professor is given a moment. It only takes a moment. The Professor is going to Distill Magic. It is another one of our custom moves. Y'all who have tuned in before have seen it. If you would like to isolate the magical property of an enchanted creature in this case, and create an Erix to imbue other weapons with it, roll plus sharp.
That is a 9.
Okay. The way that this works, I personally, as a game runner who is new to this, always will have these custom moves that we build work. They always will work, and then depending on the role, there just might be consequences or additional benefits. In this case, you said a 9?
9.
Yeah, that is you successfully distill the magical property into a single Erix, which can be used to enchant anything else. But there are some complications. Because this is a big moment, if you will allow, Brian, I will tell you what I think happens.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What ends up happening is, while the Professor might have embellished his amount of time to study the anti-Erix, I do not think it's crazy to assume that somebody who has spent their entire life dedicated to this singular task of developing, creating, and testing these things would not be able to glean things from observing it, and then also spending time, of which you've had plenty of while journeying in between these places, at least meditating on the effects. He's pretty close. He raises his hand over just the face of this monster. And as you see it now, it is still on the ground. It is breathing what you assume are its last breath. And you are reminded again that this is the avatar of a god, the corrupted presence of the divine, in a sense. in the dirt in front of you, and in 2 very quick combat rounds, you guys dispatched it. And you see it, and you see its corruption. You are aware. The summoner said he didn't think it was the true being. It is just an echo. You are aware that this is primarily corruption that has harnessed bloom energy in order to create what maybe it once was, the afterthought of what this creature was. You hold your hand over it, and you place your device on what you take to be its forehead near its many eyes, and you initiate this protocol. I think in that moment, Tag realizes his misunderstanding, maybe even steps forward to stop what's going to happen. But the distiller of these Erixes hums to life. And it is different than the last time. You see the ichor peel away from this thing. It evaporates into this black fog, which we've seen it do before. And much like Tag did in the phase state, it peels off of the creature like a blanket. All of this goes to the surface. You see it pouring out of the pores, every orifice on this creature, all of its injuries, the ichor is flowing out of it, collects along its exoskeleton, and evaporates into a fog which swirls into the professor's hand. Like before, this creates an Erix, which is an anti-Erix, almost a portable black hole. The professor feels it start to drain his own life energy. He steps back and drops it onto the grass, and you see it draining the grass, the plants, and pulling all the life energy before. But more importantly, you do witness this creature. Unlike the first time you saw this happen, it did not suck the life energy out of this creature. Whatever calibrations he made were close enough. And while it did not look like a painless, perfect process, the ichor, the corruption, had been removed from the avatar of this god. And you see, once free, the creature's final breath is one of relief. It passes into whatever place it came from, now free from the corruption that was forcing it to do whatever it was trying to do. You get the sense that maybe it didn't even have an objective. It was just going about some existence that was itself a corruption of what it once did, using death to create life instead of life to further life. And the creature disintegrates. It burns away, much like the one Tag freed before. It is free, and it turns into this billowing green gold ash. But instead of dispersing into the sky like it did before, it starts to swirl and condense and turn, much like the fire tornado that Bryn just had erupting out of her staff, in reverse. The empty gems that are along Bryn's staff start to flicker, and they're reacting to the energy of the planet and of the creature. And Bryn, you feel something inside you start to flutter. This ash, this green golden ash, swirls and collects and feeds into one of the gems in your staff, which were previously clear. And now one of them is glowing a bright green. And unlike the times that these crystals have reacted to magic in the past, this glow does not go away. The gem internalizes it and turns into a brilliant emerald. There's a moment where everyone is quite surprised by what just happened, that maybe the professor didn't betray you. Maybe he needs to pick up this crazy freaking black hole that he just dropped on the ground, and maybe Rex needs to be healed. But time seems to stop. And Bryn, you are catapulted into a place similar to the phase state, but it's a connection that you now have with your staff, in particular this green gem that just happened. Tag, your connection to her has pulled your attention to it, but much like the memory you witnessed, you are viewing it from the outside. And though you might try and communicate with her, you cannot get through. You can see what happens. And Bryn, you find yourself in a place much like the Preserve, only it's the way that you would see it in the phase state. Everything is pure energy. Everything is in its raw, original state. It's all clean. It's coming straight from the continuum. It hasn't been touched by any kind of corruption. And standing before you is a very large, gigantic even, scorpion. And it is no longer injured. And what it does is it's a scorpion, so it has 8 legs and 2 giant pincers, but it does get down into what you take to be a kneel. It lays its pincers in front of you and its stinger. And you get the sense that it has offered you its sword. And then you're back in the real world, kneeling over Rex, and she's been poisoned and unconscious. You have a new move that I will add to your character sheet that is very big, but we will get to that after you deal with Rex.
So, kneeling over Rex, I get this overwhelming urge to embrace her and to pull her in close, kind of like heart to heart. And I feel this chamber open within inside of me, and I feel health, like a reserve of health right there. And I give it permission to leave my body and flow into hers. And as I hold her, I can feel it leave my body, go into hers, and then out the back side of her, I see sort of these tendrils of greenish, blackish stuff start to slowly seep out the back.
Okay. You're going to use your new spell?
Yeah.
Okay. It's called Healing Touch. It's just a healing spell that we devised, pretty straightforward. I'm going to have you roll for it. Roll plus weird.
7.
Cool. You can heal 2 or stabilize. I think that either will accomplish what you'd like to do.
What's the difference?
There isn't in this case, and the semantics of it are kind of stupid, so if we ever get into a position where it's different. Basically, healing her 2 gets her up to a stabilized position. If she was like at -6, you could just stabilize her without healing her. So what you say happened. I'll get better about not wasting that time to just give you what you want. But yes, you pull the poison right out of her, and you see her eyes flutter open.
We're in this awkward embrace, face to face. I'm like, hi.
Hey.
Woo!
And then I kind of like push away from her, but I'm still very weak, so it's very ineffectual. It's like when someone's like picking up a toddler and the toddler's fighting them, but they're an adult, and so the toddler's just like, ah.
Okay, Bryn, I should mention that when you cast that spell, the force of will that you had used earlier to give yourself room to do magic, you could feel it shrink, like the barrier that you've protected yourself. It's now being, whatever's trying to stop you is now trying in earnest. And so you are protected for the moment, but the protection is severely weakened. Professor, you got a Anti-Recidivism eating the world right at your feet?
I'm going to go ahead and scoop that up right now.
Okay.
It's actually expanded to enough where it's difficult to actually reach, unless I were to kind of like do one of these kinds of things, and it's approaching that part where it's too far for me to reach away. So I'm going to take out another little gizmo and give myself a little extender thing, and it's going to go over there and then snap up the little anti-Rx into the successful container that I've developed.
By the time
those kids' toys, the little claw that you squeeze the one hand of, and the
it's not state of the art. No.
We all know what that is, but what is it called?
It's a claw grabber.
Claw grabber, sure.
Claw grabber, TM.
No roll necessary. You get it into the jar, but by the time you do, and the time it takes to just get it off the ground and into the jar with one swift movement, and to put the lid on it, the claw grabber all of the strength has been sapped from the material, the metal that it is, and it's now extremely brittle. And when you give it an experimental squeeze, the claws tap together and then break apart. Just interacting with that thing just sucked everything out of it.
Teaches me to get that at the dollar store.
Okay, so we've, I think, just got one final post-combat beat from Tag, if you'd like one, and then we're going to move on to the next scenario.
Did you say that there was the force of will barrier that Bryn had created, that something was now trying harder to beat it down?
It is a very familiar presence. It is the malice that has been harrying you this entire fight. There was a moment where, from where I'm coming from, I think that when you used your power to free her earlier, you beat it back. But like this jungle that keeps clawing forward, it is now, got its momentum and is now coming back after you. So you did some damage to it. She's been able to protect herself, but in the time it's taken you to use magic to fight this scorpion and heal Rex, it is now starting to come back at you.
This is probably coming through that seam in the fabric, the portal that had broken open, right?
That's what you assume, and there is that feeling. She shot that red bolt of energy into the ichor that was pouring out of the reactor. Uh-huh. That is sucking into that hole she created far less, and the ichor is starting to ooze out of the breach in the reactor.
Well, that seems like not one small post-combat beat from Tag. That seems like a big problem. Am I overreacting? Everybody seems pretty chill about this.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're overreacting. I think a lot of stuff was happening at once.
Our life force.
No, I think a lot of stuff was happening at once. So you can that is the next scenario. So if you choose to move, that's where we're going next, is reactor core. But if you wanted to do or say anything before we move forward, and you guys had to start problem solving, you have a breath before.
Is the Stegosaurus coming with us?
It is a creature that is loyal to Tag and exists.
It's a pet!
It didn't have a chance to fight in this fight because you guys whooped that scorpion, and the next boss I create is going to be very strong. But you guys did really well because you found the flamethrowers and you used a lot of fire magic. Fire beats plant, just like in Pokemon, and you guys whooped that thing's ass. But yeah, Tag has a Stegosaurus monster that is a bloom golem that has been created by a staff. You can dismiss it, if you want, but until you do, it is a familiar.
I will never forgive you.
You need to name it. What's its name?
Her name is Stax. 2 X's.
The mirth that so many people had on their faces, and then after you said that, you can dismiss it, and how it so quickly dropped was priceless.
Yeah, I think that I come up, with a single tear running down my cheek, and I just take my void blade and just slit it. And it just this billowing sort of like a poinsettia that has that milk just pours out from its gullet.
And I arise from my passed out state and immediately stab you in the heart.
With your flower sword?
Yeah, you start to stab the flower, just bends on my chest.
It is interesting to note that upon defeating the creature, the mace is not returned to its normal state. It is still a giant flower on Rex's back.
Well, that's not ideal.
Yeah, it depends what you're going for.
That was going to be my next question, actually.
Okay, so...
No, I don't hurt...
Of course you don't kill the thing.
You monsters, obviously. Yeah, because that was your idea. You're the monsters. Right. I think Tag just has a, he doesn't even have a moment. I remember when I was a kid, I saw my 2 dogs who lived together and loved each other get into the only real fight that I've ever seen them get in. And afterwards, my little pupper, just all this adrenaline just left his body and he just sank to the ground. And I think that there's a similar moment here with Tag where he's just been in fight mode for so long, and fight and run and protect, that there's just this emotion that starts coming out of him. And it's not in a big showy way, but it just feels this immense sadness and takes one big exhale, thinking that it's okay and he can move on now. And that's when there is that tug, and he can just feel that this is not the end, and that malice is still here and crawling towards them. And he looks over at Bryn with that urgency in his eyes.
Yeah, received. Agreed.
There's no point in keeping it a secret. The next thing you guys need to deal with is the reactor core. You can open the door to it. You do not need to crawl through the breach where all the ichor is pouring out. You can use Summoner Langorium's key card to open the door to it.
Are there any vents? We did pretty well in vents.
Historically, we're awesome in
inside joke
vents.
if you watched last week, where we had about 14 failed rolls in a vent.
So wait a minute. So we can't do anything on the surface here. We actually have to climb inside the bowels of this whole facility, right?
Yeah, the reactor core. You guys go in and you open the door. You can see that it is not what you expect. You know, you've all been to company. Bryn, not so much. Tag, not so much. But Professor, especially, and Rex, you guys have been to company facilities before. You've seen reactors. They are big, glowing, multi-layered, crazy things because a lot of them incorporate elemental energy to fuel them. This is not what you expect. There is just some walkways that outline a circle building. They're metal walkways with railings and a couple ladders that go down. And there are some large machines and what look like racks and racks and racks of batteries. And there are a multitude of cables that are connected to all of these batteries that all snake down into the belly of the reactor core. And as you approach the railing and look over the side, you do in fact see a ripple in the air hovering above the ground. It looks different than what the summoner Langorium had been explaining. Perhaps in the explosion that happened that fractured this thing, the rift or the gateway or whatever it is has widened. But it is a ripple in the ground. And the two of you who can use magic should both roll plus weird.
Okay. Right before we roll, let me note, moving forward, I think that in everything that was happening between Rex passing out, Bryn saving her, the giant fight that just happened, I don't think that Tag saw what the professor was doing. I think that he trusted the professor completely and so does not know that the professor actually sucked out this Eric's and has kept it for himself.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
I'm sorry, what am I rolling? Weird?
Plus weird.
It's weird. I've only ever rolled
8.
weird this whole
8.
game. 10.
Okay. Tag and Bryn, you see the same thing. You instinctively click over to the phase state. And you see that inside the reactor, it must be insulated with some kind of wards and protective materials because in the world outside, when you've entered the phase state, it is a roiling, kaleidoscope of elemental energy. This is a dead spot inside. And that's how you think that perhaps they were containing whatever this was. However, in the center of the room, you see a gateway that leads into a very, very dark place. You can see that it is open, that nothing is obstructing your view, but on the other side, you cannot see anything.
It's a built gateway. It's a structure.
No, it is a tear in reality.
Okay.
I'm referring to it as a gateway because that's what it's been described to you as, a place that things can pass through. But it is just darkness on the other side. It's more than darkness.
And
It is that malice.
the dead zone that has been created is that's a constructed thing as well. That's something that presumably the workers of this facility built to block out magical influence here. That's
Yes.
not part of the gateway.
Yes, it would keep any magic from leaving and any magic from coming in.
Okay.
This gateway is something different. The thing that's different about you, Tag, you are viewing this thing, and it looks scary. Bryn, you are viewing this thing, and it is viewing you right back. And you feel the malice focus on you. It has not made any kind of move yet, but all of you can see that the ichor is in fact pouring out of this thing. It is covering the ground and going up onto the walkway and out through the rift, or the fracture in the building. But yeah, Bryn, whatever's on the other side of that thing is looking right back at you.
Okay.
And
What
what
do you
do
guys
us
wanna do?
non-magic people see when we
You
look
just
at
see
it?
this like strange ripple in the air. It's not defined as a Terran reality. It's more of like a wavering space and a lot of black ichor on the ground.
I have
I
a
would
crazy
definitely
idea.
want to throw something at it
Yeah.
just to see what happens.
Ooh. I mean, I have a pretty crazy idea, and you can feel free to talk me out of it.
I will never.
Never.
You might want to. So if we're looking at like the absence, the death, the absence of life, what if we choked it out with something that is extremely full of life, which would be the Bloom Erics? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like it can't go wrong, really.
I mean, I have no idea what to do with it, but it seems to me that that would be the opposite of it. That would
I think
fight it.
I think
Do
if
you
nothing else,
want to make a scene out of it? Instead of just telling me you want to tell Tag?
Yeah, I'm telling Tag right now. Wait, what?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. My plans? I mean, Professor, you're more familiar with Eric's. I don't know what to do with this thing. Do I crack it open and throw it there? Do I throw it as it's... I don't know what to do.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's... It makes sense. I can kind of... You and I both... I think that Bryn and the... What am I called? The parallel, me. The entire time on this planet, there has been something calling to us. And we... At least I haven't known what its intentions were, what the calling was about, but there has been a pulling, a summoning almost, something, a tether in my chest that is being yanked towards what I now see is this rift. And it's always been about absence. And when I say void, I don't mean as in the energy void, but void as in just this hollow, this emptiness, this the essence of subtraction, of removal of life and power and energy and magic. And so it makes perfect sense that we would suffocate it with an abundance of bloom, exactly life itself.
Or we could just throw rocks at it.
Let's start by throwing a rock at it and see what happens.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Let's
try that.
Throws a rock at it, and it sails into that shimmering place in the air above all this ichor, and everybody waits expectantly for it to, hit the ground on the other side, but it does not. It is just gone.
Meow!
From inside the thing.
Kitty!
Yeah, guys, I don't know what to do with that.
Well,
I think,
if nothing
and
else,
I try to... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brad.
if nothing else, I think that you're absolutely right that the Bloom Erics is 100% part of this equation, and I believe it could certainly fuel whatever you're doing. But I'm worried that if it's merely tossed, it will do about the same as that rock just did, sailing through the rift.
So we need to open it, focus it, and throw it. Or aim it.
I can get rid of some of the mystery for you guys. I think that this sounds like a cool plan, and it sounds like you want to do big magic, and the Bloom Erics will be the requirement for that magic. So all you need to do, this is the way we'll do it, because I like the idea. I didn't know how you guys are going to deal with this. I think this is great. So it seems like this is what it sounds like to me, just mechanically speaking. I just want to nail down these requirements, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. If your objective is to close this rift, you will need to perform big magic. Its requirement is that it will use the Bloom Erics. You will have the option to use the staffs that you have as well, because they are powerful relics, but they are not a requirement. And both Tag and Bryn will need to use magic as a team in order to cast whatever it is you think you're going to cast. So if that all makes sense, then I'm just going to hand the keys over to you. You tell me what the ritual looks like. You'll roll some dice and we see what happens.
Okay. I think I start by looking at the professor. He, as I understand it, what just happened was he knelt down by this creature and had, I don't understand the science, I wouldn't begin to understand the science, but as it was explained to me, he tinkered with the formula in some way, and now it is effectively like magic, just this ability to release energy just back into wherever it came from. And so I think I look up to him in many ways, and my first thought is to pick his brain about it.
Well, I think that your plan that you just described is probably going to work. I mean, like it'll. If the Eric's is destroyed in the process, then that will ultimately solve one of our problems that we have anyway. And if it isn't, then we can deal with that later.
But how do we do it? How do we get the magic out of it, like you've been doing?
Well, I won't be using my equipment. That's to extract. What I think needs to be done is you and Bryn need to somehow create that harmony that you have done so many times before, and perhaps maybe even doing something similar like you did in the vats, where you change what is and this malice and all that, and essentially turn it on its head and heal this rift, as opposed to allowing it to grow like it is, and like use the Erics as a fuel for that.
So as the professor is talking, I am listening to him, and I am looking up to him and all of these things, but as he's saying, hey, it's on you to do these things, something interesting is happening with Tag that hasn't happened before. He just, at these suggestions of power, that he has the ability, he has the power, I think he's feeling a kind of vanity for the first time. Yes. Of possessiveness, like, yes, it is my power, it is my right, and they're fleeting thoughts. He doesn't even maybe recognize that he's having them. They're just little distracted voices as he's listening to the professor, but his attention keeps getting called back towards the gateway to the rift, and it does seem to have answers, as well as the professor is saying it's in you. And I'm feeling like, you're right, it is in me. And the gateway, it almost feels like the gateway is also encouraging me. Like I have that on my other shoulder saying, yeah, it is your power.
I'm going to look at the professor and Rex and say, when we're linked and we're doing this, we're going to be pretty vulnerable, and I don't know what's going to try to come out of this thing. As a defense, do you think you guys could protect us and make sure that we can get the job done at any cost?
Absolutely.
And I pull out the two, swords that I have, and I do a cool spinny move so that they're ready to go right in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes!
Yeah, you nail it too.
Yes!
Rex, I can take care of the long range things, anything approaching from far away. If you want to protect both of their bodies and be guarding them that way, I think we can successfully protect them.
All right, cool. Let's roll into this ritual. How do you set it up, you two?
Tag and I?
Yeah, how do you set it up? You're going to close the gate. You need to use the Erics.
We do. I'm going to pull the Erics out. It's in my hand. How big is it?
It's like a softball.
Oh, it's teeny.
Normally they're like golf balls, but this one is like a softball.
Okay. I'm going to look at Tag, and I'm going to say, can you give me your hand for this?
Of course, and I offer my hand.
Okay, I grab his hand, and I take the Erics, and I blow it, and it floats into the front of us. And I look at Tag, and I say, I know you don't remember it, but earlier today, when you went into the phase state, something came out of you that was so powerful and so unlike anything I've ever seen. And I think if you can tap into that again, we can find a way using that to open this and push it towards the rip.
Tag looks at the other two. They're in their guardian stance, but they're also kind of looking at him as if receiving new information, and almost like someone who lowers their voice and goes, I guess I just move into the telepathic communication that we have, and I say, Brita, I don't know what that was. I've never felt it before. You know, when you made me promise not to let you use fire because it was wild and chaotic and uncontrollable, that's exactly how I feel. I know that I'm not stronger than it, that I can't handle it.
I think you can, and I think I have to use fire, and I think we have to join forces, and we just have to trust. Because right now, it's our only option. You give me strength, and I trust myself when I'm connected with you, and can you give me that same kind of trust?
I think that Tag feels overwhelmed right now. What's going on in his head is that Bryn is really the first, person that he's ever truly trusted. The kind of feeling where he knows deep, deep, deep in his body that whatever she does, she's going to be okay because she's just one of those people that she's a natural-born summoner. And I don't think that he communicates this because it's a lot, and there's a gateway to hell, who knows what, sucking the lifeblood out of all of us. But he nods his head and just says, "Of course I trust you."
All right. Both of you roll plus weird.
11.
14.
Excellent. You are holding hands, and you drop into the headspace you need in order to access magic. There's no reason to reach any farther than what's at your fingertips. The Blue Merix is radiating so much energy you wouldn't know what to do with it. You have no idea how they were harnessing it, how they were using it at all. It seems to be like trying to fill a shot glass with a tidal wave. It doesn't matter what you would try, it would just be too dangerous. Fortunately for you, the rift at the presence of the Erix has now focused all of its energy and seems to be trying to pull the Erix into the rift. But with your combined confidence now, vanity for some, trust, you watch as your mind's eye actualizes its imagination. The Erix floats into the air in front of you and hovers, and as it does, you see as it is rippling in the plants that grow and die and bloom and blossom and fall apart off of it. And all of this energy that you feel, this tidal wave, floods into the rift. And like you expect, the rift cannot absorb enough of it. It actually starts to cauterize it as if it's a wound. But there's a moment where one of those black tendrils of malice lashes out, and it wraps around Bryn's arm. Tag, you lurch forward to try and stop her from being taken, but she doesn't move, nor does the malice seem to focus on you. And from Bryn's mouth, these words happen. I've sent you a text message, Lisa.
Do we have opportunities to act here?
You will after she speaks. She looks right into your eyes. Her eyes are as jet black as the rift that is now closing, and the tendril is wrapped tightly around her wrist. And she says,
We allow you to close this gate so you may assist in widening others. You are exactly where you need to be, where we want you to be. You are our hand. You are our mind. You are our soul. Go forth and spread our love, our hunger, our hunger.
These words, she's looking right into your eyes when she says them, Tag. The tendril unravels snakes back into the rift, and it cauterizes. The air is no longer shivering. The ichor on the ground starts to dry and crack. And then you are in silence.
The hell was that?
Did it work?
Uh,
I think we did it.
We don't have the super phase vision like you do. What do you see?
The rift is gone.
It's closed. It's gone. All of it.
We heard
The
what she
Eric's
said, right?
drops. Yeah, everybody heard it. And the Eric's, as soon as the rift was closed, drops onto the ground. You guys had this second of confusion where she seems to not know that she had just spoken. The professor's asking if everybody else heard that. And then you feel the opposite of the explosion that you felt when you landed. That bloom energy, which had been cascading out of this facility, now rushes back in. You suspect the delay is from the fact that it was very far away. The barrier that Summoner Langorium just spoke of came down, and all of this bloom energy rushes past you. The hair sticks up on every part of your body, and it cascades into the Eric's, which just shakes a little bit and lays on the ground. And the grass around it, grass starts to grow out of the metal grate around it in a very slow fashion. But the moment that happens, you hear a crackle on your radio for the first time since landing on this planet. And it is... Hello? Ground team, report. This is Captain Matt Vansel. Ground team, report. Are you there?
Yes! Oh my goodness! Yes!
Thank the gods. We're on our way to get you now. We have your coordinates. All of our machines just came back online. We can scan the planet. We can see where you are. What happens next is a quick series of events. We're going to move into a montage. If there's anything you'd like to do before we do, I want to give you the opportunity to right now.
Where does the montage end?
Bryn, I imagine we will have a couple moments, if maybe in Homestead, maybe a wrap-up with the Eric's, maybe any of these things, and then it's going to get you back to Haven. There's going to be a couple vignettes that I will set up in rapid succession, but if there's anything you'd like to do in the reactor core in this moment, after seeing them close the rift and Bryn say those things, now's your chance.
I reach to my back, and I pull out Graflex, and I see what?
Big ass flower.
Okay, then I look at it for a second, and because of everything that's been so crazy going on, I haven't had time to properly react to this, but this is a weapon that is the best word to describe it is sacred to me. And now I have no idea what to do with it, and it's like if you were a little kid and you found like a dead or almost dead bird on the side of the road, and you pick it up and you take it home to your mom and want her to fix it. And so I just turned to Bryn with Graflex in my hands, and if Rex were one to cry, she would be crying. So maybe there's just like the teeniest little glint in her eye, and she's just like, Can you fix it?
I can try. I'd like to roll Force of Will and suspend a magical effect, because I have a feeling that this is all just an effect.
Yeah, do it.
7.
Okay. It comes back. However, in the transition, it has lost its fire enchantment. Being that it was a partial success, Graflex is back exactly as you remember it. But in the transition, what she brought forth was your original mace, and the fire enchantment did not carry back with it. But it is no longer a flower, and you do have Graflex back.
And I hold it closely to my body and in a hug, and I'm like, ow, ow, ow.
Okay.
I love it so much. Ow.
Okay. Is there any other moments here?
Well, kind of got to scoop that Eric's back up. I mean, we don't want to leave it here.
Okay.
You can put it in the container, and I'm doing so very gingerly, like trying to be very kind of like, apparent, and everyone is. I'm very specific in my movements and not trying to be like sneaky at all. Here I am. Well, I'm even like saying it out loud. Here I am. I'm just going to go up and scoop this up and put it in the container. Starting laid on down now. Now I'm going to go upstairs.
Okay.
So the Eric's was not destroyed.
No, it was not.
Okay.
It did exactly what you said. I mean, it seemed like you don't know what might have happened if this rift was larger or if it was a more dangerous version of whatever it was, but the excess of life energy was exactly what you needed to smother it, and it closed. It did not destroy the Eric's in the process. It didn't even seem to damage it. It didn't even seem to tap into its potential. Like it still has some cards to burn.
So I think a strange thing happened with Tag as Lisa was speaking, as Bryn was speaking, and as this gateway was closing. And let me see if I can find that exact text again. You are exactly where you need to be, where we want you to be. You are our hand. I had come back from that moment of Bryn, of that pure trust and just idolizing this person, my friend, my mentor. And as these voices were speaking, suddenly that ire, that bile just flashed in my chest again. And I realized that exactly it is. She is just a mouthpiece for this calling, and Tag's being very quiet as this is happening, but what he's realizing is that he's furiously angry that the gateway has closed because he doesn't belong here. He needed to go through it. That's where his home is. He's never felt a sense of belonging anywhere. And it's not so literal as if he had parents that were calling out to him from the other side saying, hey, Tag. But it was that feeling of, I'm not lost anymore. I have a place, I have a purpose. And so as this residual feeling is sitting with him, he sees the professor, who's going, I'm just scooping up the lyrics. And as he puts it in his bag, he sees that the professor has kept the other from the scorpion, the one that he said, when he said he had freed this creature, that he had actually taken its power and kept that for himself. And it suddenly seems fine to him, almost like a gift that in a world so chaotic, it's as if Tag can pull on the wisdom offered to us by Jurassic Park, the franchise, and realize that InGen, that corporation, had, they took science and they went far, far beyond the bounds of morality and caution, and they ended up creating a form of chaos that overpowered the sense of feeble order that we have. And so I think that he thinks of it. He doesn't say anything. He's like, yeah, let the professor keep the Eric's. Let them.
Both?
Say it again.
Does he have both?
He has 3 right now.
Yeah.
Does he have the Boom Eric's?
He just took it and put it in his bag. Yeah, I think so.
I'm on my way up the stairs with it in my hands. I didn't say I put it in my bag.
Yeah, he's got it, but he's on his way up the stairs.
Anyway, so it's just, I think the Tag is looking forward to this turn of events.
Okay. Any change in anything else before this montage clicks over?
I wanted to bring up what Summoner Langorium had mentioned about his people and what they will know what to do. And so if we are going back to Homestead, I'd like to address that, about who is going to be the next person.
Homestead wouldn't be the place to do it. Wherever the government body on the preserve is would be located in the capital city. Nobody knows in this party what would happen, but you assume that there is something, in place for if a summoner dies. Bryn knows that in her family what would happen. Like if her mother died, Bryn would be just ascending to the throne. So there there was probably a contingency in place. It's just that Homestead's ain't, you can call somebody, but it won't be. Homestead's like a little colony designed to help this facility. It's a very podunk place. It's way out of the way.
I was under the impression that the preserve had very little actual places where humans, resided, and this was one of them, one of the biggest, perhaps. But you're saying there's a much larger governing area on this planet.
No, it's what you think. It's just that the place where these decisions would be made, there is a slightly larger city. It would be like the city where the locals live, the ones that, like the ancient city of this planet, where the Summoner family lives, and, it would be the only city on the planet, and it wouldn't be much of one compared to what you're used to. And then there's just several outposts like this one dotted across a very large planet. Mm-hmm. So large, in fact, that trying to get from one to the other in anything but a flying vehicle is almost impossible because of the danger and the distance required. So it is a very wild place, but there is a city, there is a capital city, and that's where the Summoner would rule from.
Gotcha.
Okay. As it stands, the Summoner, Professor has 2 anti-Ericses and the Bloom Erics. Professor, you offering it to anybody, or are you keeping it?
I can hold it up and see if someone else wants to take it. I'd say with that, feel free to take this from me if you still don't feel as though you trust me with it, but I would perhaps, under your supervision, really, really, really be interested in studying it more closely, because this is potentially incredible to our way of life now. I know that we've seen it tweaked and perverted into a terrible situation, but it has so much more potential for much, much more. Like I said before, this has the potential to help us feed an entire solar system. So by all means, I want to be above board. I do not want to do anything untoward. I mean, if you would like to stand over me, looking at me through the phase state, making sure that I'm not doing anything, like opening enough a rift, for instance, and let Rex blow me in the head with a gun or something like that, if you feel as though I've somehow stepped out of line. I'm comfortable with that as long as I can study this.
Where are you going to study it?
I need to go to a lab. I don't know if there's one on this planet, but I know there's one in Haven.
Okay. I think as long as you have the ability with Tag and myself and potentially Rex to protect it from getting in the hands of the company, I'm okay with it being studied.
Thank you.
I still don't trust you.
Yeah, what else is new?
And so I put a hand on Rex's shoulder and I say, I do trust him. And I look at the professor and I say, I'm sorry about what happened before when it was a tense time and I didn't know my place or my purpose, and I was just overwhelmed, and I'm sorry. If you're telling us, if you can promise us that it won't ever see the company's hands, I trust you. And I think that Tag smiles and stands back and has just told the first lie that he has ever told in his entire life, knowing that trust is irrelevant, that the professor will say what needs to be said, and that the thing is that Tag does believe him and does have faith in him, but he knows that this Eric's feeling what was on the other side of that curtain is far more powerful than any human's ability to tinker or study, that it has itself a destiny, that it is being called somewhere and being called to a purpose, and it will seek out and find that chaos no matter where it is or who has it.
And I lean down and scratch Stax just behind the ridge.
Okay. There's like a sound.
I love it. Stax is voiced by D. Bradley Baker.
Let's hope we do better than we did with CNAC with him.
Oh. All right, so here's what happens. You guys walk out of the Elder Seed facility. you are a little bit worse for the wear, but you really kicked that mission's ass. You walk out into the barren landscape that had been picked clean by all these nightmare creatures. You've not seen any more nightmare creatures or any more people on your way. It's a slow motion shot of a shuttle landing. It's just broken orbit, and it comes down and lands in the dirt, and the dirt billows out around you. It looks much like the one that you rode onto this planet. And as the door opens, Captain Matt Vansel himself hops out and approaches your group. We don't hear what's being said, but there seems to be a lot of relief and congratulations, and he's shaking all of your hands, and you're getting a very different energy from him than the one that you left with, because he was a bit standoffish and a bit of a prick, but he's now showing you what seems to be respect. He ushers all of you onto the shuttle, and as you're taking off, Bryn requests that there is a stopover in Homestead. As the shuttle pulls off, we see two more land in the dirt outside the Elder Seed facility. These doors open up as well, and people who look to be armored like Rex was the first time that you saw her, you would recognize them as problem solvers, file off of these shuttles and enter into the facility. They're holding void blasters and shields, and they are snaking into the facility. They're starting to dismantle things. A lot of them have scanners. They're starting to look at things, and we see them disperse into the facility and start to kind of pick it clean and see what happened. Your shuttle flies over the jungles of the preserve. It's a very short flight, and lands in a little clearing outside Tara's house in Homestead. The door opens up. I imagine Rex will want to have a brief scene with Tara. I think that Bryn has something in mind. If there's nothing else for Tag and the Professor calling your heart in Homestead, you would just be on the shuttle. Is there anything else you'd like to do here?
Where's here?
We are in Homestead. I'm going to let Bryn do a vignette and then Rex do a vignette, and if there's no other call from you two, we will be moving on after. But did either of you feel strong?
I'll take a half moment afterwards, but I would also encourage Rex to take her time with this, the romance that I think we all are deeply invested in.
Okay.
No need to rush it.
Would either of you like to go first?
We'll roll for it? I don't know.
We'll go with Rex. Rex, you see Bryn, your scene does not take place here. I don't know. I have no idea what you're doing. I assume you're like walking off to a different part of Homestead. Yeah. You see Bryn, and I think maybe Tag shadows her.
Yeah, I call Tag to follow me.
Okay. Right. And you guys are walking away. Tara has come outside when she heard the ship landing. She sees you holding those two swords, and this glint comes into her eye, and she tells you, keep them. But you are standing in her front yard, and it is Tara.
And I've kind of got the swords out of my hands because I'm trying to give them back to her. And she says, keep them. And I just look at her, swords in hand, and I say, can I kiss you?
She smiles and gives you a very obvious, slow lean into an awkward but adorable first
Well, I
kiss.
drop the swords as soon as she starts to lean forward.
She laughs but doesn't stop. She's a fucking pro. She sees how bumbling you're being and just grabs your face and just plants this massive, forceful, funny smooch on you and pulls back and just looks you in the eye and smiles again and allows you to make the second move.
And then I say, let's try that again. And then I lean in, and I'm super cool, and it's a really cool, hot, sexy kiss.
All right. It certainly is. You feel this connection. I think it's very simple, and there's nothing complicated about it. Tara, you, Rex, live this life of constant travel, and you spend a lot of time on spaceships and a lot of time alone and a lot of time working with team members who you trust as far as combat goes, but nothing more. you are rarely vulnerable. Since you've been on this planet, you've had a few instances of feeling outside your comfort zone and kind of coming to terms with the fact that maybe you're not as strong as you thought. But in this moment with Tara, there's something so simple about it, something so joyous. When you kiss her, it's just easy, you know, and you feel a connection that is, it doesn't even require definition. It's just fun and positive, and it's great. And you two look at each other. There's not much more that needs to be said. She realizes that this ship that just landed in her front yard is the one that's going to take you off planet. But she does pat her pockets and hold up a finger, and she runs inside. And when she comes back out, she hands you this holographic business card that says, you know, Tara, Elder Seed Facility Liaison, Explorer Extraordinaire, and then on the back, she has since, like, drawn a heart around her, like, vid screen contact number, and puts it into your pocket, gives you one more smooch, and, you know, you two separate and walk away.
And then I clumsily pick up the swords and I say, "Thank you. I will keep these."
She nods. Is there anything else? I don't want to direct your scene too far or end it too quickly. If there's anything else with Tara, you're welcome to.
No, that was so cute and lovely.
It was so cute and sweet, and I loved it so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Bryn, you and Tag are walking too. I don't know where.
I'm kind of heading towards the square with the well.
Okay.
And I'm walking, and I walk to the edge of the square where the cobblestone gives way to like some soft bank of dirt and then grass behind that. And I walk over and I look at this this little patch of dirt, and they look at Tag and they say, "Can you pull out your new staff?"
Sorry.
Every time. Not that way.
Fred.
The blue
No,
staff.
of course not. Tag. It does this weird thing where it's just kind of that same humming that Tag was awoken to when he was holding the staff earlier. The same vibrational energy just it keeps it on his back, so he doesn't have a holster, but it just kind of almost like a magnet of magical energy fixes itself there. So he takes it out and offers it to you with his head down.
I'd actually love for you to keep it right now, and if I could, I would like to teach you the first spell I ever learned. And I take my staff and I look at the dirt and I summon and I build a sandcastle that is in the shape of my home, and it like forms itself, and it's okay. I'm a little rusty. I'm like, it looks a lot better in person.
No, I think it. Well, I am in person. Oh, you mean the actual?
Yeah.
No, it
When
looks
you're
great.
there.
It looks incredible. And is it? Keep going.
I was so working with the earth is this really rooted magic that you feel down to your feet. You feel the connection into the dirt, and so if you work with that and you picture a place that means so much to you, so strong of a link, and then aim your staff at the dirt, and it almost kind of works for you. Try it.
And so I first close my eyes and I say, "Are my eyes supposed to be closed?"
Whatever helps you envision it the best.
Okay. And so I like tense my stomach and tense all my muscles, and I let out this little squeak of just like a. And I look at her, and she's smiling at me and laughing, and I realize that, immediately I think that's the wrong way to go about it. So I take a breath, and I breathe out, and I just sort of let my gaze unfocus, and I see the monastery at Silval, where I was raised, and I see all of its angular jutting towers, and I see my friends there, and I see the friars of the cloister and the who raised me, and I have a brief moment of just a nice oh yeah, in all the craziness I haven't thought of them, and I start to point the staff and then suddenly my vision is overtaken with the gateway, and that longing is just plunged down, and suddenly it's as if it's being sucked back up, and the thing that I'm drawing in the sand starts to be the gateway. I see the sand moving, and I know what's about to happen, and so I quickly take the staff off before Bryn is able to recognize what's going on, and I look at her and I say, look, I don't know about me being your parallel. Bryn, things are happening to me, and I don't know what they are, but I feel bad, and I am having bad thoughts about people and the world. It's this emptiness of hope that I've never felt before, and it comes quickly and it leaves again, and I don't want it to take over, and I am having a hard time blocking these thoughts out, and I don't want them to hurt you or our friends here. I don't know that I should do magic anymore.
Anymore? I look at his, mound of dirt. And I look at him. And I pull out the flower from the summoner. And I plant it in the mound. And it does this beautiful sort of reaching out of leaves and wraps around, and it makes this beautiful, almost vigil for the summoner. And then I look at Tag and I say, magic is scary and it's unpredictable, and I understand exactly what you've gone through. I struggle with these feelings every single day. I feel like an imposter. I feel like I can't lead a planet. I can barely keep myself fed. I don't even know the last time we ate. 24 hours ago? It's ridiculous. But also, you and I were given these, crazy gifts of magic, and I feel like we owe it to at least explore it and dedicate something to it and know that inside we're good people, and that, that'll pull us through. And I'm here for you anytime you want to talk. Anytime.
And he looks at her. He's had a hard time making eye contact with her this whole little speech of hers, but he does finally look at her. And the memory of that moment where he said, no more than 2 hours ago, I trust you, floods back. And he realizes that for all the forces that have been pulling at him in ways that were unexpected and surprising, there is truth to that. For all the confusion he has about what matters and what's real, that he does trust her completely, and looks down at this little shrine that the summoner has created and tries again with his staff, and for a moment the gate materializes and he acknowledges that it's there and breathes through it and keeps his eyes open this time, not closed, looking right at Bryn, smiling halfway, and allows that trust and love to funnel through. What's created is not necessarily his home. It's not about Soval or the monastery. It's just something to be in service of the work that she has been doing, because that's really what the parallel is before it. It takes this little shrine that she's created and it just raises it up from his little muddy sand mound to a kind of spiraling altar of sorts, to support hers upon which she placed this flower.
There is a moment that you have, and it is very secondary to you because of the rush of emotion that's happening, but it does ping you. It's something that's been bothering you this whole time. And in this moment that you're interacting with the element itself, you finally realize what it is. There is no earth element. There is bloom, which encapsulates life, but there's no earth element. And you recall that fire in the heart of planets is tied to the core around it, and the layers of sediment and dirt and rock that are born from the magma at the heart of these planets. And you realize that even in the manipulation of dirt, it is tied irrevocably to fire. And while Bryn hasn't realized it, she's been tapping into fire energy every time she's touched sand. It was the first time she ever used magic, and every time since. And when she brings those barriers up, even though they don't look like it, it's been fire this whole time. And even though it's at the back of your mind, you know she hasn't realized it. So the two of you leave, and as you walk away, the shrine, which is now much prettier and much fuller, it just is wrapped in these vines as the flower continues to grow and grow and grow. And it's not a tangle of vines and craziness. It seems to be growing into the contours of the sculpture that you just made, and it does become this shrine, a remembrance of the summoner. And you two walk back to the shuttle just as Rex is climbing on. Tara is waving to you from her front porch. The professor is sitting in the inside of the shuttle talking to Captain Matt Vansel. And again, your shuttle takes off and heads up into the atmosphere. And as it does, several more shuttles land in Homestead, and company problem solvers pile out. And we see them on Nayland Junge's porch, interrogating him, or pointing to the well and asking questions. There's people circling the well with scanners and lowering things down into it. They're banging on the door of the science facility. They're in Tara's front yard, looking through her windows, but she isn't there, and we see as the camera swings around the back that the door is ajar, and there's a few muddy footprints that have gone into the forest. And the company swarms over Homestead, using its instruments and talking to these people. But your shuttle climbs up, and you see the jungle of the preserve stretched out ahead of you. And it just covers the entire planet, and you fly up into space, and it's a very smooth transition. These company vessels are top of the line, and you dock with Haven, your mothership, your Haven, and you are let out into the docking bay. All of you pile off. I think that you're very excited to just have a moment to yourself, maybe take a shower, maybe plop down onto a bed. Eat, yes. Captain Matt Vansel assures you that that preparations are being made, that you guys should just relax and go and take your time. And he walks and leads you off. But as the professor is in this daze still from everything that's happened and everything that he's learned, he's climbing off of the shuttle. You all realize that there is a bit more activity here than there was before. Before, there was just a few robots running around. The Void Jumper, which you guys have seen, looks to be near complete. It is in the center of the thing, but that isn't the activity. The activity is that there's a lot more black-clad soldiers walking around. There are problem solvers in the hangar bay. They're not doing anything. They're just standing off to the side. But from another one of these shuttles, a figure approaches, Professor, a woman who you recognize. She gave you your start at the company. Her name is Shabana. She approaches and nods. Two other problem solvers step forward, and two more come out from behind you and put a hand on your shoulder. And they escort you into a side chamber off of the hangar bay. As you were behind everybody, they didn't really draw the attention of your party. There's a brief moment where Shabana says, "We'll talk soon. I'll meet you in an office that's being prepared for me now. I imagine you want to take a shower and maybe get a drink, but do not take long." She nods to the problem solvers in the room, and they strip your backpack off of you. They dismantle your shoulder cannon, and they start to peel your gear away from you. They open up your bag and go through it. Shabana stops them and steps forward and sees the glass jars that house 3 different Erixes. She looks to you and smiles, but you can tell that she is not happy. She zips the bag and puts it on herself and says, "I'll be waiting." And then she walks away. The problem solvers walk with her. You have none of your items, and you are left standing in this room off the shuttle bay alone. We're now going to do a few scenes, any that you'd like to have. This will culminate in the professor's meeting with Shavanaugh, but I will let you take the lead on any that you would like to have before that happens.
I look at Rex as we're sort of in the main hangar bay, just sitting. There's a weird moment where there's so much activity and so many things we know we need to do, but with all this brass around us, no one's told exactly what the next step is, so we're kind of in limbo. And I look at her and I say, "So when the summoner and I went off in Homestead, where did you go?"
And I kind of just look up at the air and then down on the ground, and I get a little flushed, and I'm like, I just wandered, just was, taking one last look before the company descends and probably wipes that place off the face of the earth.
Did you tell her how you feel?
I mean, not verbally.
He just nods. He says, "That's cool. That's cool."
And then I lean down and I scratch Stacks behind the ridge again, and I say, like, "Hey, do you think I could, like, try and train this little gal?"
And I say, "Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely."
Then I come in and I say, "Who's hungry?" And I've got a bunch of pieces of moonberry pie and some space bubbles and some champagne flutes. I think it's time to celebrate. We survived.
The professor leans a bit closer to Rex because she's the only other person who's involved with the company, and sort of asks her, "What happens now? What I mean, I'm familiar with lots of different kinds of things, like protocols and with the company, but this is not really one of them. This is more the kind of thing that you end up handling more than often than not, more often than I anyway. What are they going to do?"
You mean to what?
To the preserve, to the haven, to our ship. Like what's going to happen now? I've never really been in this position.
And I lean in real close and I say, "You didn't hear it from me, but my guess, they'll burn that place to the ground."
Is there anything that we could have done? Is there any warning that we could have given the people down there? I mean, what did we do wrong?
Again, you never heard me say this. We're not the ones who did anything wrong there. I don't know. Maybe they'll just end up destroying the facility and leave the people there alone. But that hasn't been my experience with them. And if you didn't know that about them, now you do. So plan accordingly.
This hits kind of the professor pretty hard because he doesn't really, he didn't really know what was going to happen exactly. And he tried to weigh all the possibilities and all the outcomes. And he thought, well, if I do this, well, now that's going to happen. He thought he was playing a really good game of chess. Thought as long as he got back to Haven and we can get out of here, then we could make a difference. We could do something. So he's just beside himself.
Bryn's gonna walk over to the professor. She's on her second glass of space bubbles and feeling very good. She's gonna say, "Buddy, I'm so sorry I didn't trust you. I just have trust issues, apparently. I didn't realize it. And now I'm going to try to start trusting people. And guess what? I got them to fix up the lab. It was so dusty. So now it's all fixed and we can study the Erics together. And I would love to offer you a job. It's my personal mechanic. With, like, magical stuff, not cars and spaceships.
Sure. Yeah. We might want to tweak the title a little bit. But yeah, absolutely, I'll be interested in that.
Yes. So when do you want to get started on the Erics? I could start anytime.
I don't have them. They took them.
Who took them?
The people who took all our stuff. Didn't you have all your stuff taken as well?
No. Who took stuff?
The young lady who walked up to me with the rest of the goons. They took all my stuff. I don't have my backpack. I don't have the Muppet. I don't have anything.
We have to go get it.
Great. Yeah.
All right, let's go. We found a giant scorpion. We can take care of a lady.
Tag in the back raises his glass and goes, "Yeah, somebody say trust issues?" I assume that this is a private conversation between the doctor and the summer.
I'm being very loud, so I'm guessing you can all hear me.
Can I just say, meta game? I love Drunk Bryn, and I hope we get to see more of her.
Space bubbles.
Where are you guys having this little soiree?
I started a scene with Rex in the hangar bay, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that is where other people joined us, or we did a little time jump to later.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I was just curious. You do see that there are still company problem solvers, lounging in the hangar bay. On the surface, they look like they are sitting, leaning, hanging out. Rex recognizes this as a very poorly employed cover. They are keeping an eye on you. They're not doing anything. They're just there. They're just watching. It's like a surveillance detail, probably, but they are there.
So, how do we deal with this?
I could call my mother. She could deal with anything.
I don't have a mother, Tag says from the back.
No.
Do you want to go call your mother?
Yes.
Okay. So Bryn and Tag peel away from the group and kind of drunkenly are now very interested in calling my mother. They are leaving, and they go towards the lift that will take them to Bryn's VIP suite. You see a couple of the problem solvers peel away and take another lift up. You can only assume they are going to continue keeping an eye.
I do this to them.
One of them smiles, the other just nods. They are not overly antagonistic. They know that you are very important, but they know that you're drunk, so they're willing to play a little bit of the game, and they just okay, lady.
I said, we're going to call our mothers.
My mother's going to kick your ass.
Yeah, my mother's going to... Yeah.
And the door slides shut. You guys go up to Bryn's VIP suite. We will get to that scene
One of those
soon.
elevator mistakes where I accidentally had my staff in the doorway, so it closes and then it reopens. And say, yeah, what? And it closes again. And it gets stuck on the staff and it reopens. So hold the staff out of the way. For real, stuff closes. Yeah, but yeah.
Nailed it.
You guys abscond upwards. The VIP suite is on the upper level of the ship, and we will do that scene down the line. But you guys go that way, which leaves the two of you, the two company employees, now standing in this hangar bay after the summoner heir apparent of the fire planet just said, "I'm going to go call my mom," and left. You can see that some of the guys who had originally taken your items and left with Shavana have since returned and are waiting next to the elevators, looking at you, Professor, as though to say, "You're expected." But they're not doing anything. Everybody's playing it very cool, very careful,
Mm.
So are they within earshot?
No.
Okay.
Nobody's creeping on you.
Right.
Bryn happened to be speaking loudly, but nobody's doing anything. They're just there. They're just looking to make sure that you don't do anything bad.
Sure. I inch closer to Rex again. So, Bryn had an idea about perhaps, taking over the ship again. What would happen if I got back to the company? What would happen to her and the summoner, as a summoner? What would the company do to her family?
At worst, try and convince people that she's insane and get her locked up. I mean, the summoners are too powerful for the company to be able to do much. They have to work together.
But it would not go unnoticed. It would come with its own set of consequences.
Oh, most definitely.
And you've heard, Rex, of more long game political ramifications for dissent. No outright problem with the summoners, but in the way that Langorium said that his acceptance of their projects on his planet gave him huge cuts in the tariffs that are for the trade. You've heard of the opposite happening, in which trade is restricted to planets or certain items become unavailable, medical assistance is withheld for longer, like long game pressure. It all revolves around trade for the most part, but you've heard of stuff like that.
Will you clarify for me, Jesse? Haven is our ship, or Haven is a company ship that picked us up and took us here to?
Haven is a company ship.
Oh, okay.
It's like
So we have no claim to Haven. It is.
No.
We're just We're just hired passengers on their ship.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have thousands of ships, so it's not like a closely monitored one, and the crew is probably mercenary in the fact that Captain Matt Vansel is probably like a company liaison, but he doesn't necessarily work for the company. He doesn't necessarily work for anybody else either. He might be an independent contractor, exclusively contracted by the company, Yeah, what do you guys want to do at the tail end of this conversation?
Well,
or continue to have it?
Unless Rex has anything else to say, I'm going to go over to the two guards and let them know that I'm ready.
Okay. They open the elevator and they let you on first, and they follow you. They are kind of flanking you. Where would this meeting take place?
Is our plan to rejoin with the professor? We're just going to go call our mom and then come back down, or we have the expectation we're splitting off for the evening? We're planning. Why don't we just choose? We're planning to. No, never mind. It doesn't matter.
I think you'll have a scene with the mother that might inform, if we have time tonight. We're gonna, no matter what happens, I think next session will involve a lot of Haven stuff too. So if any of these plot lines don't get resolved tonight, we will be picking up on Haven. You won't miss the opportunity to do these. If we have time tonight, there's a chance that you will be speaking to Bryn's mother on Vivid Screen. They actually have cleared out all personnel from the lore library, Professor, and you are brought into what looks to be a recreation of a library that you would see in somebody's villa. Instead of there just being server bays, where you are familiar with that kind of being the case, and a lot of view screens in which you can access information, this actually has wooden bookshelves and a lot of old books that are just crammed into them. You have not met the librarian, but she's a hoot, and you'll meet her sometime. She's not in there. Instead, Shavana has cleared off her desk and is now sitting behind it. You are escorted towards it. All of the doors are closed and none of the problem solvers leave. You can see now that these are Shavana's entourage, for lack of a better word. These are her personal guard.
Her goons.
They're her goons. Normally, soldiers like this would be dismissed if anything confidential was going to be discussed. These guys are not dismissed. They are her crew. There is a seat waiting for you, and you take it. And sitting on the desk in front of you are 3 slim metal cartridges. And they have pieces of tape that have been put on them and hastily scribbled labels. One of them says CNAC 88. One of them says Clive. And one of them says Darius. Shavana is sitting behind the desk, and she says, I'd like to debrief you on your mission to the Elder Seed facility on the Preserve.
Okay.
Report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to debrief me. So you would like me to debrief you. That's all right. It's semantics. Anyway, so we went on to the Preserve, and immediately, even before we were able to get on to the planet itself, there, as you know, I believe, there was some sort of reaction, some sort of wave that encompassed our ship and made it crash. We had to venture forth into the jungle to get to Homestead eventually, and we were encountering these creatures that were apparently going off. I'm not sure exactly if there were creatures that were akin to the planet itself and relied there. I've never been to the Preserve, or if they were somehow creatures from someplace else, but they seem to be very hostile, and we had to dispatch several on our way. And once we reached Homestead, there was a number of different villagers and workers that were going to the Elder Seed facility that had gone missing. So when we looked into the Elder Seed facility, we saw I'm not exactly sure how to describe it. These animals that we had been encountering had apparently taken up nest there. So several things had been locked down, and the people who were there at the Elder Seed facility had been locked into different rooms to try to preserve themselves and try to keep out this force, and none of them really were successful. They found their way in, and I can only assume they were dragged down into whatever hive these creatures had. We were encountered Summoner Langorium, and then we encountered a very large creature. We were able to dispatch it, and that seemed to work. That seemed to make the planet, the radio contact silence, was no more. We were able to communicate with Haven, and you know the rest, I believe.
Yes. You had several objectives. If you don't mind, I'd like to step through them and see how you feel about your effectiveness in completing these tasks.
Right.
The first of which was to ingratiate yourself with the summoner, to create a bond in which a reliance on you or the company would perhaps encourage her to offer you a position in her cabinet when she ascends to summonerhood. How would you feel you performed?
I would feel like that she threw me a small bone and wanted me to be an engineer or some sort of small-time person to take care of her cars and her vehicles. I don't think I really ingratiated myself very much. I mean, I believe that she gave me a position, yes, but not in her cabinet.
And we also asked you to retrieve the prototype Erics from the Elder Seed facility.
Yes.
How would you say you performed?
I would say that that particular prototype is so unstable that it would be not in the company's best interest to continue to have it. I think it should be destroyed, and I think I'm the best person to find a way to do that.
Okay. She gestures to the metal cartridges that are on the table, and she says, "Are you familiar with these?"
I'm familiar with these robots' names, yes.
These are emergency uploads, which we obtained when the barrier around the preserve dropped at the conclusion of your mission. These are their memory cores, backed up onto portable hard drives. If you don't mind, I'd like to address a few concerns.
Of course.
She pulls out a drawer on the desk and removes a small device and plugs a wire into the first one that says CNAC 88. You hear your voice on a recording. It's a conversation you recall having when you were outside the tavern in Homestead, and you say, "In the vein of transparency and honesty among my fellow party members, I want to let you know something I was told before we came here about what I'm supposed to actually be doing, other than just being a member of this party." She clicks a button and you hear it fast forward. She says, "You then went on to tell them all about your secret mission." Let's pick up again here, yes? She pushes play. It's you again, and you say, "You may have a bit of an inflated, positive sense of what the company is really interested in doing. I don't know all the dark corners of the company we all kind of worked for, but I have a feeling they have a lot of thumbs and a lot of dirty pies." And you remember when Tag was yelling at you and you countered with that argument. She then unplugs it from the CNAC 88 cartridge and inserts it into the Clive cartridge, the mechanical robot which Rex brought into the seed vats chamber that did not have legs and claimed to not be a doctor. She pushes another button and you hear Bryn's voice. And she says, "You know we have to destroy that, right? There's no summoner on this planet. There's nobody proper to contain it. It can't go to the company." "Oh, it certainly isn't going to the company," you say in reply. She fast forwards again. It's Bryn this time. "Well, the company sure has a lot of ideas about it, and I'm pretty sure that you were sent to steal it, so..." "Right," you say. "I was sent to steal it, and I told you that before we got here." She clicks a button and points to the Darius module and says, "There's stuff on there too, but it's not nearly as interesting. It's all on here. You've relayed confidential company secrets to civilians. You've hacked into our robotic assets to undermine our security protocols, and you've expressed your discontent with this company's agenda to a summoner, one who we've tasked you with forming a useful bond. Your sentiments are now known and recorded. I'll be reporting your insubordination, dare I say treachery, to my superiors. I cannot believe you, Professor. After everything we've been through, I put my neck on the line for you, and not just for this mission. For your career." What do you have to say for yourself?
What are you going to do with the Erics?
That strange smile comes across her face again, and she opens another drawer on the desk. First, she removes the jar where the Bloom prototype is and sets it in front of you. And she says, "You're right, this is unstable. I will not have full control over what happens to you or it, but it will be my recommendation to my superiors that you are detained on the moon base above the Void Planet so that your descent will not be Your research will continue, Professor, and it will continue in a controlled environment. You will do your little tests and find out your little things, and we will monitor you, and it will not be your concern what we do with your findings. But if you are worried about the dangers, the unpredictability of this Eric's presents, then I suggest you buckle down and you find out how to safely harness it. She then reaches into the desk drawer and pulls out the 2 jars that contain the anti-Eric's. And she says, these, on the other hand, are an unexpected treat. Our sensors tell me that you closed the rift and used the Bloom Eric's to do so. A setback. But these are very interesting. You distilled these from the creatures that came from the rift, no?
Yes.
Tell me, what do they do?
Honestly, I have no goddamn idea.
We opened the jar when we got it onto the ship. Unfortunately, we've had to jettison the body of the 2 problem solvers who were brave enough to try before we were able to contain it in the jar again. But we feel that there is a lot of potential with this discovery, and I'm very excited to see what you can come up with.
So what happens now?
Now you will be escorted to your quarters and put under lockdown. You will have 0 contact with any of your friends. And when we get to the moon base above the void planet, you will get back to work.
How will I do that without my gear?
We will supply you whatever you need, as is the arrangement.
That specific gear was... that's the kind that you have are not at all the level that gear has been geared to. That, I mean, what yours is pales in comparison to the ones that I have specifically designed myself. I will need those before I can do anything.
She sighs and she says, all right, you want your toys? And she snaps her finger, and one of the problem solvers brings over your shoulder rig and your distilling glove. You do not have your other items, but she plops it down into your lap and she says, if it'll help you get back to work, I don't see the problem.
Thank you. I take my stuff and nonchalantly put on my gear and fit things on and make sure that nothing's been broken, buff out any scratches if I find any. So what's going to happen to Bryn and the others?
We have a task for them. We hope she is agreeable with. They will be monitored. Their movement throughout the system will be restricted. And depending on the outcome of that conversation, we may have a conversation to have with her mother.
With her mother?
The summoners are figureheads. They are a representation of everything that the people on those planets need to see in order to feel like they are unique and in control of their worlds and their destinies. The summoners bow to us because they are reliant on us. Without us, without our network and our distribution model, their resources are insufficient to handle the populations of their planet and worth nothing to them in a surplus they cannot trade for more useful items. Whatever happens with Bryn, the summoner of the fire planet, I imagine it will go the way that it always goes. The company provides.
The company provides. Professor resolutely, slowly stands up and surveys the three people in front of him. The young lady who's sitting down in the seat, and the two goons that are right next to her, flanking her. And as quickly as he can, whips out the Muppet and grabs the two cylinders on top of the table, and simultaneously, as the Muppet is firing a void blast to the lady, he whips the cylinders as hard as he can to the goons standing akimbo next to her.
Okay, we're gonna have two roles here. The first is to kick some ass. The second is to act under pressure. Let's do kick some ass first.
All right.
Plot twist.
Kick some ass. Seven.
That's fine. Your blast,
No, 8. Sorry.
as your Muppet is unfurling and you're reaching for the vials, Shavanagh recognizes what it is you're doing and goes to draw one of the void blasters on the hip of her associate. And just as your blast catches her and lifts her off of her chair and flings her back towards the wall, she fires the shot. Roll act under pressure plus cool.
9.
Okay. You fling the jars towards the other two goons, and her void blaster catches one of them and shatters it. It takes like milliseconds before all of the glass and the void bolt, which just passed through it, is absorbed into the Eric's. And the container next to the other one smashes into it as it's flying and melts into it as well, the other anti-Eric's combining with it. This flies past the two associates and pulls them in Three Stooges style, so they smack into each other, but you can tell that that Void Eric's was just caught in between them. You see their bodies crumpling inward, as though their back is being pulled into their chest. And this is the last thing you see, Shavanagh sliding down the ground as these two fellows are being consumed by this anti-Eric's as you turn and sprint towards the door. Where do you go?
I would leave the anti-Eric's there.
Oh, not if you don't want to.
Yeah, well, if it's anything like what happened on Bloom, every life sort of thing starts ending around the Eric, so I want to go ahead and contain that as soon as possible if I can.
Okay, you're going to have to peel those dudes off, but you do it. They ain't alive anymore.
All right.
You know when you absorbed the nightmare tick for the first time? Mm-hmm. And their life energy passed out, its life energy passed out of it, and it became this very brittle, collapsing thing. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when this anti-Eric's comes into contact with these two guys. So that is what you are parsing through. But the Eric's is there, and you are able to scoop it up into your jar if you'd like. It's larger now. It's twice the size, but it fits.
To be clear, when I said the cylinders, I actually meant the robot cylinders that had just the recording devices, but let's go with your idea.
You rolled an 8, so suck it.
No. I like your idea better. I should have thought of that, actually. So, I have larger anti-Eric's and all of my other gear. I check it real fast. What about the other Eric's that I have? What about the Bloom Eric's? Is it on my person?
It's in a jar next to the two that you just scooped up. It's just, she had just put them very gloating, had just set these jars on the desk in front of you.
Okay. I'm going to take those. And I'll sprint towards the exit. Okay. I don't know if the scene is still on me or if you want to swatch scenes or something, but my intention is to try to make my way out, but I would like, if I can, to covertly communicate with my friends.
you have now that you have put your shoulder cannon back on, and nobody has like done that bath thing that everybody talked about, or maybe it was just me, because I was envisioning all of you in a metal tub full of suds, because you're all just kind of drunk post mission and not de-geared. Your throat mic will communicate to your team now that it wasn't working before because of the event that was happening on the preserve.
Right.
But what are you heading towards?
First, while I'm still in the library and before I exit the premises, I do some quick, not distilling, but the other thing that's opposite of that, actually it is. It's taking out the objects with the water Erics and the electric Erics, because I still haven't done that yet. And I pop those into containers themselves, and I stash them.
Okay.
In a certain area of the library.
Okay.
And then I make my way towards, I don't know, some kind of small transport, like getting off of Haven.
You know that there are several shuttles in the shuttle bay.
Shuttle, yeah.
When you enter into the hallway, there are problem solvers walking around. Do you want to be rushing through the hallway? How do you want to be moving?
I would like to briskly walk, and as though walking with purpose. Yes, absolutely. Like, as though I was just given a command that I need to carry out immediately.
Sure. A couple of them nod to you. One of them looks at you strangely, double takes, and then heads towards the library. Not to you. He heads towards the library.
Okay.
And you are able to get to the lift and head down towards the shuttle bay. Now would be a moment where you are alone in a elevator headed down that you might have a chance to communicate with your friends if you would like to.
Okay. I found a little alcove and, look around the corner and see if anyone else is having eyes on me, and then I can, all right. Drin, Tag, Rex, you there? Can you hear me? This is a closed channel.
What?
Yes.
Did you hear something?
I'm Tag.
Oh, that's right. You've had a little bit too many bubble drinks.
Rin.
Okay.
Is it my mother? Do we make contact with my mom?
I can't answer that. So I have to speak a little bit quickly here. I am not going to be able to hang around anymore. Some stuff happened up there, and needless to say is that I will not be going back to the company anymore.
Good for you!
Yeah.
Stick it to the company!
We hate the company. We hate the company.
Oh, that Tag a little bit. Calm down the volume a little bit. All right. Okay.
We have mixed feelings about the company.
No.
We haven't made up our mind about whether or not we dislike the company.
The intent was actually not the issue.
What kind of policies they put in place, like health care for their employees, paid time off, paternity leave.
Paternity leave. Just
Paternity
paternity leave in
leave,
general.
too.
All of the leave, all of the things, all of the benefits. Fantastic. Anyway, so I don't know exactly when I'm going to be able to see you guys again. I'm going to have to take a run for it. I have some friends that I'm hopefully going to be able to find. You know what? I shouldn't give you very many details. Just to know that don't look for me, but do look in the northeastern wing of the library underneath the Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't know why we still have that, because it seems as though all of that information is online anyway. I think it's just for show, but that's where you'll find something, okay? I have to go. It has been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to know each and every one of you, and I will cherish it always. But now I have to-
Godspeed.
Bye, buddy. Bye.
And then I start booking towards the shuttle.
Bryn and Tag are both waving, but they're only just the two of them together, so they're just waving at each other.
Okay.
That was fancy wave I learned.
Bye.
You skid into the hangar bay and compose yourself just as a couple of those. There's just a few problem solvers in there. They seem to have gone to different places of the ship to keep an eye on people, so there's just one or two goons in here. But you do get into the shuttle bay, and you see that there is one there waiting for you. Not waiting for you, but it's just it's there. They've been coming on and off of this shuttle bay like all day. Like you knew that they were dropping soldiers down onto the planet. You were coming here. There's just a shuttle there ready to rock. And then you realize you have no fucking idea how to fly a shuttle. And as this thought is coming to you and you are crossing towards this thing, you see a small cluster of robots doing repairs on another robot. And one of them raises their hand and says, "Oh, hey, Doc. What's up?"
CNAC! 88!
No.
Hey, buddy! Oh, you are looking a little bit worse for wear here. Gosh. I'm actually, I have a whole, master's degree in robot repair. I mean, hey, fellas, let me take over here for CNAC. I think I'll be able to help him out. I think I've seen a specific problem on several other robots of his generation.
They back up because you're their boss and they leave. And CNAC says, I wouldn't worry about it too much, Professor. The cosmetic damages don't mean anything. I'm going to be decommissioned and recycled for colluding in your treachery, so I don't really need to be repaired, I guess, is what I'm saying.
What if I were to tell you that could not be the case?
His eyes, which have been very dim since you've seen him on Haven, brighten just a little bit. What are you talking about?
Look, I just want you to play it cool, okay? I just want you to follow me, and we're going to go and find a shuttle. Because there are some things we need to fix in it, okay? And I need your help, and you need my expertise, so it's very, very legitimate.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Wink.
Yeah, you didn't have to say it. Okay, you know what? Just come on.
He follows you.
All right.
And you two hop onto the shuttle. CNAC gets what you're doing and realizes this may be his only chance. And so he just calmly walks up towards the pilot's chair and starts to get things rolling. As soon as the engines kick on, everyone in the hangar bay whips around to see what it is that's happening. But your door slides closed with a satisfying hiss, and the shuttle begins to take off. Is there anything else you'd like to do before you leave Haven?
No, I don't think so. I think I said all that I needed to say, and any more would jeopardize my friends. And so I'm going to try to be the rogue assailant in this situation in hopes that it will take some of the cover off of them.
Okay.
Or cover's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
The shuttle rotates and points towards the void field door that separates you from the vacuum of space, and you see problem solvers, these goons just crawling over each other trying to get to it. They're pulling out void blasters, but you just disappear out the door and fade away into the darkness of space. And the camera rotates back towards Haven, and we see this ship with a very small shuttle leaving it. And we cut to Tag and Bryn, who are just fumbling with their key card to get into the VIP suite, and they are giggling and falling all over each other, and they stumble into the room. And we cut to Rex, who is standing in the hangar bay at the back of this pack of problem solvers who are shouting and trying to get to the door where the shuttle was or rearm, and she's just smiling as she watches the transport disappear. And then we see inside the transport, and it is the professor, and he's looking back towards Haven, and the company logo is prominent on its wing, and he stares at it for a while, and CNAC leans over his shoulder and says, "I wouldn't sweat it, Doc. Those guys were assholes." Blackout.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Everybody, Lisa and I were just like this the whole last half hour of this, just being like,
I'm really glad I wasn't looking at you.
We were dying. We're just like, what?
What is happening?
I didn't see this move from Lisa.
Yeah. I was like, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, especially when you decided to like fight him, Brian. We were just like, what?
Yeah.
I did not expect them to actually give me back my gear, but I'm so glad they did.
That was sneaky good.
So, what do we say?
Well, we say this is the close of this chapter of season 1 of Void Jumpers, and we're frickin' thrilled to have had you along. We're going to be right back with season 2, so this is certainly not the... You don't need to be just me on camera. It doesn't need to be just me. My face doesn't need to be any bigger than I got a giant head there.
I don't know if it was said before. Well, I mean, I do know it was said before, but
I blew it last time, okay?
Yeah,
You can say.
so Jesse blew it. That's fine. But no, it wasn't a big secret necessarily. But this is my last episode, and in Void Jumpers, at least for a while. Now, might not be the last, but I won't be returning in the second season, at least for now. Just to let everyone know, I will be becoming a father of a son, and that will be coming very shortly. And I can't wait for that. And I need to focus a lot of time for that. And
Yeah.
So
Salute.
my friends support me in that, and they're going to continue the story. And I might drop in from time to time. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think I'm done with the professor. I think I really like him. I want him to come back.
Me too.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Great character.
Yeah.
And just to let everyone know as well, it was very sincere what the professor's last words, and they ring true for me as well. I've really, really loved the experience that I've had with all of you, and it's heartbreaking to leave it behind, but everything has its time, and I know that you're going to continue the story, and I can't wait to watch.
Aww. And you got a seat anytime you want.
Mm-hmm.
Come back and play.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to keep seeing him.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I don't think you can get rid of the professor that easily.
Not that easy.
So
You
we
gotta be
don't,
my space mechanic. Hello.
like, not for cars and stuff.
Not for cars.
Space
Yeah,
stuff.
You're
That
right.
was a front. That was a front. He was fronting just now. He was planing it down. Just okay. Just so we're clear. Thank you so much. Oh, good.
I was gonna say it's not, we're not positive whether we're gonna be here next Wednesday or whether we're gonna take a little breather to get ready to come at you with season 2 the next Wednesday. But do stay tuned, because we got our next season ready, and we're just gonna keep churning out the good stuff for you.
And our charity again tonight, Connor.
Yeah, so it's the ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. We I think, was it Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob has already chipped in to help them out with our mission. I think that, again, no pressure, but if you have the opportunity, I do think that we have this week that we're able to keep that open. If you want to check them out, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, they do really, really, really crucial work. Yeah, and we're excited about the opportunity to be able to triple your donations and really kick that support into high gear. They need it.
100%. So if no one else has anything else,
It's been fun.
it's been fun.
It's cool. This is a good this is a good thing.
This is a good thing we've been spending 20 plus hours doing for the last 9 weeks or so. Thank you so much for joining us on Void Jumpers. It's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except possibly making a hiatus next week. We don't know that for sure. But starting with Lisa, remind us who you are and where you can be found on the internet, should you wish to be found.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lisa Coronado. You can find me on Twitter at Lisa Coronado, and you can find me on another Twitch channel. It's called It's a Smalls World. Smalls is plural. Right now we're streaming The Last of Us 2, and after that I think I'm going to do some community stuff with Jackbox. So come say hi.
Conman.
That sounds pretty fun. I will be joining, not joining, I'll just be watching Lisa's stream. Unless I can wiggle a spot on there. But not playing last of. Oh God! I just got it. You gotta shut me up. You know the camera gets right there in my face. I just can't control it. I'm at Connor_Marks on Twitter and Instagram, and would love to yak it with you.
Trin.
Trin lost her feed, so she says, "Sorry guys, I loved sharing season 1 with you."
What a snarky freeze frame we have on her, though. That's
It's a good one.
Our fantastic Game Master, Jesse. Just before you get into that, I would like to absolutely applaud our Game Master for this whole season. It has been a remarkable RPG experience, none I've ever had.
It's my pleasure. I love this game, and I love this group, and I love just hanging out with you guys and having fun, and I'm glad we have a couple people tuning in to watch us do it, because it's an absolute joy. So thank you, but it's my pleasure.
And I am Brian S. Lewis. You can find me at Brian to the Lewis on most things. And also, thanks to Mark Thomason for being our tech director, Aaron Buman for our music man, and our awesome mod, Paximo. I also like to say thanks to Merkowi, and I believe I might be butchering the name. I apologize, Mark Worky, because we love that in chat where you're popping that balloon back up in the air and making that chat continue to keep on going. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it and share it, our other episodes and clips. You can join our Void Jumper Discord channel or look at past episodes on either Zoe Twitch channel, YouTube, and now we're also available on the Fantasy Network. Please tune into Zombie Orpheus Entertainment Twitch channel every weeknight for more streaming of tabletop RPGs such as this or other things like it. Looks like Zoe Game Night is going to take a little hiatus. However, Monday is Masters of the Metaverse at 6 p.m. Pacific, and DG Game Night returns on this Tuesday for 6:30 p.m. Pacific. As for myself, I've had a fantastic time fulfilling and creating with this group and sharing it all with you. I feel very lucky to be part of this first chapter of Void Jumpers, and perhaps someday I will see you all again. Catch you around the Continuum, Jumpers. I hope so.